Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Valerie Pride. Valerie Pride was born on March 9, 1958, and grew up in Arizona with her 5 brothers and 1 sister, which contributed to her strong and determined character. She attended South Mountain High School, where she gained a reputation for her intelligence and ambition. After graduating, she aimed to continue her education at Arizona State University, driven to create a better future for herself. During her high school years, Valerie fell in love with a young man named Jimmy Pride. Their romance flourished, and in 1974, they got married. Just a year later, they welcomed their first daughter, Shansha. In 1977, their family expanded again with the birth of their second daughter, Duana. Despite being a young mother, Valerie continued to pursue her ambitions. She aspired to become an electrician, a profession that was predominantly male at the time, and she did not let anything stand in her way. By the time Duana was born, Valerie had been accepted into a job training program sponsored by the United Electrical Workers, a rare and competitive opportunity. She made history by becoming the first black female electrician at the Palo Verde nuclear plant, all while caring for her 2 young children. Her life was a delicate balance of motherhood, work, and being a trailblazer in her industry. However, Valerie faced challenges in her personal life as well. Her marriage to Jimmy eventually ended in divorce. Even so, she remained strong, focusing on her career and her children, and trying to give them the best life possible. After the divorce, Valerie found new love with Ben Daniels, a co-worker at the nuclear power plant. Ben also had children from a previous marriage, and as their relationship deepened, they began planning for their future together. Although they appear perfect on the outside, their relationship is actually unstable. Valerie's sister, Vicki McDonald, revealed that Ben's past was negatively affecting their relationship. Vicki mentioned that Ben would often reassure Valerie that he had everything under control. Despite these issues, Valerie maintained her faith in Ben and their future, and before long, the two took a big step forward in their relationship together. In 1982, Valerie and Ben decided to purchase a new home in a quiet area of South Phoenix, Arizona. This marked a significant milestone in their lives. They selected a newly constructed Spanish-style home, imagining it as a place for a new beginning. Meanwhile, Valerie was finishing her final year of training to become an electrician, nearing a career breakthrough. After her divorce, she had found love again, and now they had a new home to create memories with their daughters. Everything seemed to be going very well. Sometimes, life's most promising moments can disappear in an instant. Just weeks after moving into their new home, tragedy struck unexpectedly. Labor Day weekend in 1982 began like any other for Valerie and her daughters. It was meant to be a time for relaxation, family bonding, and simple pleasures. But on Monday, September 6th, what started as a normal day turned horrific. At around 4 p.m., Ben received a call that no parent ever wants to hear. His 9-year-old daughter from a previous relationship had had an epileptic seizure while bathing. Her mother was with her but had stepped out for a minute. In that short time, the little girl suffered a seizure and submerged underwater. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors battled to save her, but by the time Ben arrived, it was too late. His daughter had been pronounced dead. While Ben was at the hospital dealing with an unimaginable loss, Valerie and her daughters were at home, completely unaware of the situation. In a time before cell phones, Valerie had no quick way to contact Ben or find out what was happening, so she had to wait for him to call her. Around 9:30 that evening, Valerie spoke on the phone with Ben's brother. This call became her last known contact with anyone outside her home. They spoke for about 10 minutes, focusing on the condition of Ben's daughter in the hospital. During the conversation, there was a knock on the front door of Valerie's house. She informed Ben's brother that she needed to hang up to answer the door, as Ben was not home. That was the last time anyone heard from her. Neither she nor Ben's brother realized that this would be their final conversation. At around 10 p.m., after several hours in the hospital, Ben returned home, exhausted and grieving the loss of his daughter. He just wanted to get some rest. However, as he neared his house, he noticed something was wrong. The front door was slightly ajar, which was unusual, especially in the Arizona summer when everyone kept their doors closed to maintain cool air indoors. Ben carefully pushed the door open and stepped inside, where he saw a horrifying sight: blood everywhere. Valerie and her two daughters, Shansha and Duana, had been murdered. They had been brutally attacked in the living room, just a few feet apart. 8-year-old Shantia and 4-year-old Duana lay lifeless in the living room, their small bodies covered in blood. Valerie was also found dead near the kitchen, her body soaked in blood. The home they had just moved into, where they hoped to start anew, had turned into a scene of unimaginable violence. Ben's screams echoed through the night. Overwhelmed with grief, he collapsed, crying out so loudly that neighbors rushed outside to see what was happening. Unable to help, the neighbors called the police, as Ben was too devastated to do anything but mourn. For any parent, losing a child is an indescribable pain, but returning home to find one's entire family slaughtered is simply beyond comprehension. When the police arrived, even the most experienced officers struggled to comprehend the scene before them. Many described it as the most horrific crime scene they had ever encountered. Blood was everywhere, covering the floors and walls. Shansha and Duana were discovered huddled together in the living room near a love seat, still in their pajamas, which suggested that they were preparing for bed when the attack occurred. Valerie was found in the dining area close to the kitchen, her body just a few feet from the back door, as if she had been trying to escape. There were no signs of forced entry at the crime scene, indicating that the killer either had permission to enter or managed to get in without breaking anything. The police began to consider a disturbing possibility when they learned about a knock at the door during Valerie's last phone call. The person who knocked might have been the one responsible for the horrific crime. Furthermore, it was revealed that the suspect had not stayed in the house after the murders. They exited through the back door and jumped over the fence, vanishing into the night. The murders were initially believed to be the result of a robbery gone wrong, but that theory was quickly dismissed. There were no signs of forced entry, no stolen items, and no evidence of an intruder. Instead, they discovered a scene of shocking violence. Someone had entered the home with the singular purpose of committing murder. The pressing question for investigators was, who would want to kill a young mother and her children in such a brutal manner? Time was critical, as a dangerous killer was still on the loose, and they needed to apprehend him before he could strike again. That night, the neighborhood was quiet, but one person had noticed something unusual. As police officers searched the area, a neighbor mentioned hearing a loud argument coming from Valerie's home around 9:45 p.m., but thought it was just a typical family disagreement. When they looked outside, they saw nothing, no suspicious individuals, no signs of trouble, and nothing that seemed alarming. An hour later, at 11 p.m., Valerie's ex-husband, Jimmy Pride, arrived at the house. When the officers informed him that his daughters had been murdered, he collapsed on the pavement, screaming in anguish, just like Ben had. He couldn't contain his emotions, writhing in pain and sobbing. The anguish was so intense that the police had to intervene by force to calm him down. Meanwhile, behind the house, there was a bloody handprint on the wooden fence. This was clear evidence that the murderer had escaped by climbing over the fence and disappearing into the darkness, likely through the yard of a nearby abandoned home. But whose handprint was it, and what kind of person could commit such a brutal act? The investigation took a more disturbing turn when detectives learned that Valerie's family had only recently moved into the neighborhood. They had been there for just a few weeks, barely enough time to make friends, let alone enemies. No one truly knew them, yet someone wanted them dead. Detectives searched for answers by examining Valerie's life. They investigated her social relationships, her family, and sought any signs of a possible enemy. However, as they delved deeper, the truth became increasingly troubling. There was nothing to uncover. Valerie had no history of conflict, no long-standing grudges, and no background suggesting that she would meet a violent end. She was a devoted mother and lived an ordinary life. Yet, someone had violently disrupted that life in a horrific manner. Autopsies revealed that both Valerie and her two daughters, Shansha and Duana, had been attacked multiple times. Notably, there was no evidence of abuse, which eliminated one possible motive: but it did not bring them any closer to solving the case. With each passing day, the investigation stalled, unanswered questions continued to accumulate, and the town was left in a state of fear. On September 10, 1982, Valerie and her daughters were buried, but their funerals were filled with tension. The community was haunted by the reality that a killer remained at large. Detectives then discovered an unusual clue. A month before the murders, Valerie and Ben's home had been broken into. Initially, it appeared to be a simple burglary, but the details were alarming. The intruder rummaged through the house and also slashed their waterbed. Disturbingly, they took Valerie's clothes and tossed them into the water, indicating a personal motive. It was clear that this was not a simple thief looking for valuables, but rather an enemy who wanted to send a message. Could this have been a threat? Did Valerie unknowingly encounter someone dangerous? Investigators were eager to find connections, but the case hit another dead end. The culprit had disappeared without a trace. As months went by, what seemed like promising leads faded away. Numerous tips came in, each one offering the possibility of a breakthrough, but none brought the detectives any closer to solving the case. What once felt urgent was now growing cold. As the situation became tense, rumors began to spread throughout the town, accompanied by various theories, such as ghosts in the night. One particularly chilling theory suggested that the recent murders were linked to the tragic death of Ben's daughter. Some residents speculated that Valerie and her daughters were murdered as a twisted form of revenge. Ben's 9-year-old daughter had died in an accident, leading some to believe that someone held Valerie responsible for it. However, investigators later clarified that the girl had suffered an epileptic seizure and had drowned, with the autopsy confirming that there was no foul play involved. Despite this, rumors continued to thrive, contributing to the growing anxiety in the town. As the one-year anniversary of the murders approaches, detectives have not yet found any new leads. The murders of Valerie and her daughters shocked the community, and investigators are still searching for information, but to no avail. Valerie's union and the Silent Witness program have offered a $2,000 reward, yet no significant evidence has been uncovered so far. In August 1983, the case took an unexpected turn. Police announced that a suspect had been arrested, and the news quickly spread throughout the town, raising hopes that justice would be served. What surprised everyone, however, was that the suspect was only 14 years old and still a high school student. Authorities also disclosed that they were searching for 2 other suspects, one juvenile and one adult, believed to be involved in the murders. The police suspected that the murder might have been an act of revenge for the death of Ben's daughter, a theory that had been discussed but never confirmed. The arrested teenager was believed to be related to Ben's daughter. Could Valerie have been blamed for the child's death? Was there a deep-seated resentment that led to something violent? This idea was frightening, but it raised more questions than it answered. If Ben's daughter's death was considered an accident, why would anyone blame Valerie for it? And if the motive was revenge, why target her daughters as well? It was confusing, and even the investigators were skeptical. Just when it seemed that a motive had been identified, the case became more complicated. Within 24 hours of the arrest, the 14-year-old was released. The district attorney decided not to file charges, stating that more investigation was necessary. The evidence the detectives had was not strong enough to support a case in court. 2 other potential suspects were never arrested, no charges, no answers. The case, which had briefly reignited interest, went cold again. 2 years later, a neighbor found a surprising clue, a knife buried in a backyard. It closely resembled the one thought to have been used in the murders. Investigators quickly sent it to the crime lab, hoping it might finally provide a breakthrough. But once again, optimism turned into disappointment. The knife was tested for DNA, but there were no matches, no evidence linking it to Valerie, Shansha, or Duana. It was yet another dead end in a case that continued to be a mystery. As the years passed, the detectives never gave up on the case. They meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence, interviewed over 1,000 people, and followed every lead, but they still couldn't identify the killer or their motive. By 2012, investigators admitted that they had exhausted all possibilities and needed the public's help, believing that someone had vital information. They were convinced that this was a deeply personal crime. The perpetrator had entered Valerie's family home with the sole intention of committing murder. Now, more than 40 years later, the case remains unsolved. The brutal murders of Valerie, Shansha, and Duana continue to haunt the community, leaving an emotional scar that won't heal. Investigators think that someone close to Valerie might hold the key to the truth. But how could someone capable of such brutality carry on as if nothing had happened? Do they feel remorse? Do they ever worry about being caught? Or have they convinced themselves that they got away with murder? In recent years, advancements in forensic technology have allowed detectives to revisit the evidence. DNA collected from the crime scene has been submitted to a national database, raising hopes for a breakthrough. However, even if the killer is eventually identified, no explanation will ever make sense. Nothing can justify the horrific act of killing an innocent mother and her two young daughters. This crime epitomizes senseless violence. Valerie, Shansha, and Duana did not deserve what happened to them. Regardless of how much time has passed, one thing is clear: those capable of such a terrible act must be held accountable. Valerie Pride's life was a testament to resilience, ambition, and a profound love for her two daughters, Shansha and Duana. She was determined to pursue a stellar career as the first black electrician at the Palo Verde nuclear power plant and to build a new life with Ben Daniels in South Phoenix. However, on Labor Day weekend in 1982, her family's dreams and future were brutally snatched away in a horrific act of violence. More than 40 years later, the mystery of who killed them and why remains unsolved, leaving a lasting pain in the community. Despite advances in forensic science, nothing can erase the tragedy that claimed the lives of an innocent mother and her two young daughters. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Blanca Arellano. Blanca Olivia Arellano was born on February 6, 1971, in Hatiso Pan de Zaragoza, located in the northwest of the state of Mexico, Mexico. She was the youngest daughter of Dolores Gutierrez. She had two older sisters, Alejandra and Perla. Later, her sister gave birth to a baby girl named Carla Arellano. As an adult, Blanca successfully completed her education and earned a bachelor's degree in tourism. With her qualifications, she worked for several years at a travel agency. After that, her new job was as a taxi driver. In her free time, Blanca takes care of her health by cycling and going to the gym every morning. She believed that sports were essential to living a fulfilling and happy life. Although she was comfortable being on her own, she was rarely alone. She was fortunate to have close friends, Mercedes and Maru, with whom she often spent time. Three friends meet regularly to share stories of their days and confide in each other. Spirituality plays a very important role for Blanca. She organized spiritual master classes and led meditation rituals. In particular, she has become increasingly proficient in the topic of family constellations, a topic that interests many people. She has achieved professional qualifications in this area. Although these activities are not directly related to her main job, she saw them as a way to fulfill her desire. It is about helping others find harmony and healing. Blanca always wore an amulet ring called Atlas. Inside was engraved an infinity symbol, a symbol she really liked. She even crafted a matching bracelet with the same design. She cherishes her guardian ring, believing that it protects and gives her strength on her journey to find balance and peace in her soul. Because of the profound spiritual significance, so she never removed the ring. To her, the ring talisman was far more than just a piece of jewelry. In mid-2019, shortly before turning 50, Blanca developed an interest in online games and began spending a significant amount of time on the computer. Her niece, Carla, noticed this new hobby of hers and invited her to join a popular game. This game included a streaming platform where players could interact. One of the users was a man named Juan Pablo Jesus Villafuerte. In the game, players entered a virtual space, navigating obstacles and fighting for survival. Blanca became deeply engrossed in the game, especially because it allowed her to connect with people from around the globe. Before long, Blanca met Juan, the administrator of one of the virtual rooms. Juan, born in 1985, was from Arequipa, Peru. He had a twin brother and an older brother, Francisca Villafuerte, who worked as a lawyer. Juan had previously been married and had 2 children from that marriage. However, after his wife accused him of domestic violence, the relationship ended in divorce. In 2016, Juan decided to move to the city of Hua, located 2 hours by car from Lima, the country's capital. There, he enrolled in the medical faculty of the National University named after José Faustino Sánchez Carrion. Through the internet, Juan met Blanca, and they began communicating regularly. Over time, their conversations became frequent, helped both understand each other better. He trusted she so much that he made her the administrator of his virtual game room. On March 2020, Blanca spent most of her time playing online games and talking to Juan. They frequently made video calls and watched movies together late into the night. Juan, who plays guitar, often sends her videos and songs he has composed specifically for her. On her 50th birthday, he even wrote a heartfelt post on her social media page. From that moment, their relationship shifted from friendship to romance. Blanca, deeply in love, felt happiness, but she was afraid to tell her mother, sister, and friends about it. Eventually, she decided to open up and express her feelings. Juan then revealed his wish to meet her in person, which required him to travel to Mexico. However, he later admitted he didn't have enough money for the trip. Determined to make it happen, she told Juan that she would travel to Peru to make her dream come true. It was meeting him face to face. Blanca was prepared for anything. Given her challenging financial situation, she decided to sell some of her belongings, including a car, a bicycle, and various pieces of clothing. She quickly managed to gather the necessary funds. In July 2022, Blanca purchased a plane ticket to Lima. Shortly before her departure, she informed her family about her plans. Initially, her decision surprised her mother and sisters. However, after some thought, Alejandra, her older sister, acknowledged that Blanca was an adult and had the right to make her own choices in life. Ultimately, Alejandra simply wished her younger sister well. On July 27, 2022, Blanca boarded the plane, eager to reunite with Juan. A new chapter in her life began. By 2:45 a.m. the next day, she had arrived in Peru, where Juan greeted her at Jorge Chávez Airport. Their first stop was at the riverside, where Juan introduced Blanca to his family. After this gathering, they went to a room Juan had rented from Mrs. Magdi Loli Milan. However, there was a complication. The room was rented for one person only, so they had to keep Blanca a secret. One might think that Blanca would feel uncomfortable in a foreign country, where she knew no one, but she was entirely unbothered. She stayed confident in her plans, which included buying a car and becoming a taxi driver in Lima. Driving was what she did best, and she's sure she could continue her usual work in a new city. She regularly contacts Alejandra and Carla to keep her loved ones updated. She shared details about her daily life and the beautiful places she managed to visit. Everything was going perfectly for her, just as she had envisioned. Blanca was also happy to share her excitement about a new romance. She and Juan lived near the beach, a location she adored. She often recorded videos of the stunning ocean views and sent them to her family. To stay connected with Juan while he was at school, she purchased a local mobile phone. She told her mother and Carla about the phone but, curiously, didn't share her new number with them. While this struck her family as a bit odd, everything else seemed fine, and they soon let it slip from their minds. While Juan was studying, Blanca spent time alone in her room attending online training sessions with her friend, Mercedes. It was an innocent activity, but Juan disapproved, so Blanca tried to keep it hidden until he got home. Then, she admitted to Mercedes that she was secretly participating in the training. This made Mercedes reflect on Juan's overly controlling behavior toward Blanca. She started thinking about it more and more, and over time, their relationship began to fall apart. At that time, Blanca had no job, no income either, so Juan was giving her $20 a week for expenses. Their arguments and disagreements became more frequent. Sometimes, Juan made excuses about having to attend classes so he wouldn't come home in the evening. In October 2022, Juan met a woman named Carmen Marin Castillo, who rented out a room for students in Northeast Lima. Immediately after that, he and Carmen fell in love. Soon, he started spending more and more time with Carmen. Feeling confident in his feelings for her, he decided to end things with Blanca. On November 6, 2022, around 2 p.m., Juan was in Lima and sent Blanca a message saying he would arrive in 3 hours. At approximately 6 p.m., he arrived at Mercedes in Deco Street, turned off the GPS on his phone, and went to meet Blanca. He attacked Blanca, striking her multiple times on the head and ribs. He continued beating her until she stopped breathing. Using his medical tools, he dismembered her body to make it easier to easily dispose of it. Realizing that Blanca could be identified by her tattoo, he removed it and distorted her fingerprints. The next morning, Juan started searching the internet for information on how to factory reset the phone Blanca used. Meanwhile, her loved ones grew anxious because they had stopped receiving messages from her. Carla is trying to find her aunt, Blanca. She reached out to Juan on social media to ask about her aunt's whereabouts. Juan claimed he had no information about Blanca's, but he explained that Blanca was unhappy with their relationship and had decided to go to Lima for a break. He added that, after realizing he couldn't give her the life she wanted, she planned to return to Mexico. Blanca's family found Juan's explanation puzzling. She had never mentioned her relationship with him nor expressed any desire to come back home. Distrusting the words of Juan, someone they barely knew, they decided to seek help from local residents. Together, they created a social media post about Blanca's disappearance, naming Juan as the only person she had been in close contact with in the unfamiliar city. Feeling desperate and powerless due to the vast distance between them, her family managed to file an official report with the prosecutor's office after several hours, officially declaring she missing. The Peruvian National Police promptly began an investigation. Meanwhile, Juan worked on creating an alibi. He called his university friend, Edson Amir Flores Aragon, claiming he felt unwell and needed some help. Around 4 p.m., Edson arrived at Juan's house, where Juan offered him a few drinks. After some time, Edson became heavily intoxicated. By approximately 6 p.m., Juan took he outside, ensuring the neighbors saw them together. The two then went to a store, where Juan purchased 8 garbage bags. Afterward, Juan said goodbye to Edson and returned home. Once alone, Juan placed Blanca's dismembered body into the garbage bags. Later that evening, he went to the beach near the port of Chorrillos to dispose of the remains. At the site, a canal flowed into the sea, and Juan completed his gruesome task before heading back home. On November 8, 2022, he left the house carrying a large backpack and went to a shopping center. There, he purchased various cleaning supplies, including a significant amount of chlorine. A surveillance camera captured him as he left the store. After returning home, Juan carefully cleaned the room, determined to erase all evidence and continue his life as if nothing had happened. 2 days later, on November 10, 2022, a group of fishermen were working at the beach port when they noticed a flock of birds circling over the shore. Curious, they approached the area and made a horrifying discovery. On the sand lay a head, a hand, and a body. Terrified, the fishermen immediately contacted the police. The police arrived at the scene, accompanied by representatives from the Prosecutor General's Office of Forensic Science. While examining the remains, they noticed something unusual: a ring on the victim's fingers. Investigators initially hypothesized that the woman had been killed elsewhere and her dismembered body had been moved to the beach. However, to confirm the identity of the victim, they needed to analyze the remains. The investigation soon hit a major obstacle. The victim's fingers had been mutilated, making it impossible to take fingerprints. This unusual detail led investigators to suspect that the victim might be a foreigner. During a press conference, Utah Police Chief Elvis Boss Billiards informed the media that the victim was believed to be a woman between 35 and 45 years old. Meanwhile, a rumor has emerged on social media that a Mexican tourist who visited Lima a few months ago has gone missing. As the investigation progressed, the national police linked the two cases. Unaware of the investigation's developments, Carla continued to locate her missing aunt, Blanca. On November 12, she once again appealed to the public for help. She accused Juan of being the main suspect in her aunt Blanca's disappearance, as he was the last person who had been with Blanca's in Peru. This accusation alarmed Juan, so he took defensive measures. Juan responded with a new story, filled with inconsistencies and untruths. He claimed that Blanca in Peru is homeless, and that he was merely helping her out of kindness. He denied having any romantic relationship with her. He even announced his intention to sue Blanca's family for defamation. Carla, however, firmly refuted all of his claims. From that point on, the two began a heated dispute on social media. Carla defended Blanca's reputation, while he tried to evade responsibility in every possible way. He then changed his profile picture and deleted all photos and other documents related to his relationship with Blanca. On November 13, the Mexican prosecutor's office announces it will travel to the United States to speed up the investigation, gather necessary information, and summon the suspect to court. By November 14, Juan had been officially identified as the primary suspect in Blanca's disappearance. During the interrogation, he said nothing and was uncooperative, leading investigators to search his home. His brother, Francisca, who is also his lawyer, is confused by his silence. But Francisca maintains that there is no romantic relationship between Juan and Blanca. That same day, Blanca's relatives contacted the police to share key information, reporting that Juan had personally gone to the airport to pick up Blanca when she arrives in Lima. The evidence continues to emerge, shedding light on the case. During analysis of the photos, investigators confirmed that the ring found on the beach belonged to Blanca. On November 15, during a search of Juan's home, more important evidence was found. Inside the house, investigators found 3 suitcases, a Mexican flag, women's clothing, and hair. Using fluorescent lighting, traces of blood were found in the bedroom, bathroom, shower, on the mattress, and in a vase. Based on this evidence, authorities requested Juan's temporary arrest. Subsequent DNA tests confirmed that the evidence found in the house undeniably belonged to Blanca. Blanca's family, including Alejandra and Carla, were devastated upon hearing the news. They went to Peru with the intention of testifying against Juan in court. Once there, they faced the heartbreaking task of identifying Blanca's clothing. Meanwhile, Juan has run away with his lover, Carmen. In 2022, the Peruvian Supreme Court issued a preliminary arrest warrant for Juan. However, authorities were shocked to discover that he had escaped. Their concern grew when they remembered that Juan had a twin brother, which could complicate the investigation. Despite this, authorities soon located he at Carmen's house, in San Juan de Lurigancho. He was immediately taken to the National Criminal Investigation Department in Lima and detained for 72 hours. During the interrogation, Juan maintained his innocence. He claimed that he was not present at the time of the murder, and asserting that his relationship with Blanca was purely an online friendship. At the hearing, he portrayed himself as a wrongfully accused man, expressed sympathy for Blanca's family, and urged the police to find the real perpetrators. On November 22, 2022, a hearing was held where it was requested that Juan be placed in custody. Prosecutor Marcus said it would be difficult to convince people of Juan's involvement in Blanca's murder. But he stressed that if Juan were released, he would likely try to escape again. The court approved the request, and Juan was sent to Carquin prison in Gua, where he was to remain for at least 9 months. Before the trial concluded, he filed an appeal. However, his lawyer did not attend the hearing. The judge rejected the appeal, stating that sufficient evidence had been gathered to prove Juan's involvement in the crimes and reminding him of his false testimony. During this time, Blanca's family tried their best to bring her body home in order to hold a funeral for her. Initially, this seemed impossible, as further testing on the remains might have been required as the investigation continued. Finally, in February 2023, Blanca's remains were sent to Mexico. Her family entrusted the remains to a funeral home for cremation and announced they would temporarily keep the ashes. After justice is served, they plan to take her ashes to the church so she can rest in peace forever. Meanwhile, Juan remained in prison awaiting his trial, scheduled for August 2023. During the trial, the prosecutor's office, the defense, and several witnesses presented testimony. The accused, Juan Pablo Jesus Villafuerte, was found guilty, and the court proceedings moved to the stage of delivering the verdict. On September 12, 2023, a virtual court session held by the Supreme Court of Lima announced the decision. Present at the session were Juan, who was in prison, his lawyer, Fernando, and one of Blanca's sisters. In his statement, the judge said that although the prosecutor's office accused Juan of organ trafficking, the complaint was dismissed due to lack of evidence. However, the judge confirmed that Juan had used his medical expertise to dismember Blanca's body. Additional evidence also revealed that her personal belongings, including her passport, driver's license, and mobile phone, had been found in Juan's house. Thus, Juan Pablo Jesus Villafuerte was convicted of the murder of Blanca Arellano and sentenced to 35 years in prison. Furthermore, he was fined $1,000, payable to Blanca's family. After the verdict was announced, Carla, Blanca's niece, expressed her dissatisfaction. She argued that the 35-year sentence did not reflect the severity and cruelty of what Juan had done. She believes that such a sentence would allow rapists and murderers of women chance to reintegrate into society, something she finds unacceptable. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Fernando Federico Reyes. The exact birth date of Fernando Federico Reyes is unknown, but he was born around 1983 in the village of Pampa Blanca, located in the El Carmen department of Jujuy province in northeastern Argentina. He was the youngest of 5 children of Orlando Reese and his wife, Tate. Records indicate that his older brother was named Diego. There is little information about Fernando's childhood and adolescence. In 2008, Fernando, then in his 20s, met 14-year-old Dana Estrella Belén Martinez. Despite their age difference, they quickly developed a relationship. Dana, born in 1994, grew up in the same village and had a close relationship with Fernando's family. She was known for her cheerful, energetic personality and for spreading positivity to those around her. Dana loved the nightlife and often attended parties. Their friendship quickly developed into a serious relationship and they began living together. They moved to the city of Pampa Blanca, and Fernando made a living as a taxi driver. A year and a half after moving in, the couple finally contacted Fernando's relatives to tell them about their new home. They shared how their lives had changed and reassured his family that everything was okay. Some time later, Fernando began to keep in regular contact with his mother and often sought her advice, especially during conflicts with Dana. At the beginning of their journey, both Fernando and Dana had frequent job changes, which affected their finances. As a result, they were evicted from their home in Lario. Undeterred, they moved to Las Naga in the province of Belén. In this small village, they rented a small house owned by a man named Jose Cruz. Once they settled in, the neighbors quickly became aware of the couple's financial difficulties. Although the villagers themselves were not wealthy, they organized a fundraiser to provide Fernando and Dana with clothes, shoes, and food. The couple was extremely grateful for their kindness. The couple made new friends, including Maria and Simon. At the same time, Fernando's relationship with Dana was getting worse, which did not escape the notice of their neighbors. As arguments became frequent, the couple decided to separate. However, Fernando couldn't leave the children, so they all continued to live together under one roof. Over time, Dana began to threaten Fernando, warning him that if he left her and their children, she would report him to the police for violence. This behavior made their relationship even more complicated. As he usually did, Fernando reached out to his relatives to explain what was happening, including Dana's threats and his wish to divorce her. His parents, who lived in Jujuy, were concerned about their son's family issues. Dana begins to develop a close relationship with Simon and Maria. Dana's provocative actions increased the conflict between her and Fernando. In late November 2022, Jose, the owner of the house Dana and Fernando rent, invites Fernando to the Virgen del Valle de Catamarca celebration, which will take place from Sunday, December 4th to Thursday, December 8th. Fernando agreed to go. On Saturday night, December 3rd, there was a dance at the San Roca Club. Dana attended with Simon and Maria. When Fernando arrived, he and Dana got into an argument, but it quickly calmed down. People around witnessed the incident but did not intervene. Finally, frustrated and angry, Fernando decided to leave and headed toward a deserted area. Fernando was suddenly attacked by Dana, Simon, and Maria, who hit him several times on the head with blunt objects. He fell and died on the spot. The attackers then set fire to it and threw Fernando's body into it. One of the residents of Las Naga saw the fire in the field but did not think much of it. Eventually, it became clear that the fire did not completely burn the body. The three then placed the remains in bags and went to the banks of the Belén River. There, they dug 2 holes and buried 2 bags containing Fernando's body. Dana, Maria, and Simon returned to the party, where they drank, danced, and had fun until dawn, as if nothing had happened and without arousing the suspicions of the locals. On Sunday, December 4th, Jose was waiting for his friend Fernando to arrive for a party they had planned. As time passed and Fernando still hadn't shown up, Jose began to worry and reached out to Dana for clarification. She informed him that Fernando had gone to visit his family. Jose was left feeling confused and bewildered. He couldn't understand why Fernando hadn't told him about this. Days went by, but Fernando still didn't contact Jose. Concerned that something might be wrong, Jose asked Dana again for more information. It was then that she revealed that Fernando and Dana had decided to separate. The neighbors found it odd that the loud arguments in the couple's home suddenly stopped. Additionally, No one had seen Fernando for several days. Then, Dana told Jose that Fernando had gone back to the province of Larioca and found a well-paying job there. However, as she tried to dodge uncomfortable questions, her answers became more vague and unconvincing. This led Jose to doubt her stories. Over time, the children also noticed their father's absence and innocently asked their mother about it. Dana shared the heartbreaking news that their dad had died and was buried by the river. The children, feeling disheartened, did not fully understand what was happening. They began to bring flowers to the spot where their father had died. Jose decided to talk to the neighbors to gather information about Fernando's disappearance. 2 residents reported seeing the couple arguing. At a party later, another neighbor mentioned a fire that had broken out during the night. Meanwhile, Dana continued to deceive Fernando's family, claiming that he had abandoned her and the children. She also began asking them for money to support the children. In mid-April 2023, Jose, determined to uncover the truth, sought to verify whether Fernando had indeed returned to Jujuri and to his family. Fernando's brother, Diego, ignored the messages and then blocked Jose. Despite this setback, Jose persisted and contacted Fernando's sister in his quest for answers. Unfortunately, he also failed her, as she did not trust his intentions. In late April, a party was held 2 hours away from La Ciénaga. Dana and Fernando were guests at the event. Dana left her children at home and locked them inside. When she arrived at the party alone, the other guests became concerned because they had not seen Fernando since November, and he still had not shown up. Then Jose, the landlord, heard noises coming from the house. He had a spare key, so he decided to check inside. There, he found the small children left alone. One of the girls told him something that made him realize that he needed to call the police. On May 5, 2023, Jose reported Fernando missing. A large-scale search operation began shortly thereafter, involving police, forensic experts, and search dogs. The first day of the search yielded no results. Dana was taken to the police station for questioning. When the police arrived at her home, they were greeted by her eldest son, who told the same story as his sister. The police focused their search on the area near the river. During questioning, Dana maintained her previous statement about Fernando's trip to Jujuri, now claiming that he left because his brother Diego had died. To verify this claim, the police contacted Diego's relatives. After speaking with them, it became clear that Dana had lied, leading to her arrest on May 7th. The police focused their search on the location indicated by Fernando's son. They found a black plastic bag containing charred human remains approximately 160 to 165 centimeters tall and in a state of decomposition. Forensic doctors later confirmed that the remains were indeed human. The police sent the body to the forensic laboratory to confirm the identity of the deceased. This evidence prompted Dana to confess to the murder, especially when she was told that remaining silent could result in a life sentence. The interrogation, which was attended by prosecutor Marina, lasted about 8 hours. Dana attempted to explain her actions in a way that minimized her guilt, claiming that she had acted in self-defense. She said that Fernando, 39, had harassed her, causing her to hit him without intending to kill him. She had misjudged the force of her blows, and when she realized that she had accidentally killed Fernando, she panicked and decided to cover up the crime. In addition, she was quick to reveal the identities of her accomplices in the early stages of the investigation. On the morning of May 8, 2023, after questioning, the prosecutor charged Dana with murder. Dana was arrested at the Belén police station. Meanwhile, Maria and Simon were charged with murder. Both were detained at the Belén police station. Dana, Maria, and Simon's cell phones were confiscated for thorough analysis. The police examined calls, messages, photos, videos, and other relevant documents. Fernando's family was extremely distressed. They were shocked by Dana's cruel actions. Fernando's family traveled to Catamarca to assist in the investigation. During this trip, they provided DNA samples and found solace in being reunited with the children. The children's grandmother took them home, bringing comfort to Fernando's relatives. On May 18, Simon and Maria appeared before Prosecutor Marina, both represented by the same lawyer. They firmly denied any involvement in the incident. The lawyer argued that the testimony was unreliable, claiming that the evidence against Simon and Maria was insufficient. A few days later, the defense requested the results of psychological and psychiatric evaluations of the suspects. On May 31, the judge granted the request, resulting in the suspension of the preliminary hearing. Prosecutor Marina requested that Dana, Simon, and Maria remain in custody until a trial date is set, given the seriousness of the crimes. Fernando's family attended the hearing to support the prosecution, represented by a lawyer. The hearing was originally scheduled for June 13, 2023, but was postponed and the next tentative date is currently unknown. Dana, Simon, and Maria, who are accused of murdering Fernando, will face justice for their actions. Fernando's relatives hope for a fair outcome. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Sonia Ivanova. Sonia, a 19 years old, a Native American resident, grew up in a small village about 180 kilometers southeast of Nome, Alaska, USA. She dreamed of living and studying in Hawaii, but she needed to earn money first. Determined to make a change, she decided to take action. Along with her best friend, Timer, she moved to Nome, where she got a job as a hospital administrator. Timer found work as a hotel receptionist. They shared an apartment and felt comfortable in their new surroundings. Without a car, they walked everywhere. Sonia's family was concerned for her safety because there had been incidents of Native American residents disappearing in Alaska. They were worried because she was too naive and gullible, making her vulnerable to deception. On Sunday, August 10, 2003, Sonia and Timer went to a bar to relax with friends. They stayed until 11 p.m., then left. Timer went to spend the night with other friends since she had to work in 6 hours. Sonia, having a day off, decided to enjoy a walk in the summer rain, which she found comforting and warm. As they said goodbye, they didn't realize that it would be the last time they would see each other. At 5 a.m., Timer came home to get ready for work. She was surprised to see that Sonia was not sleeping at home. At first, she thought Sonia might have slept over at other friends' houses. Throughout the day, she tried contacting Sonia multiple times, but all attempts failed, which made her worried. She decided to call Sonia's sister, Christina, and Christina's husband, Tim, but they also didn't know where Sonia was. Tuesday came, and Sonia still hadn't returned home, increasing Timer's anxiety to the point of panic. She remembered that Sonia never went anywhere without makeup. If Sonia had planned to spend 2 days with friends, Sonia will definitely stop by the house to pick up mascara and lipstick. After finishing her work shift at 5:15 p.m., she contacted the police to report Sonia missing. The police Reburn was skeptical, he thinking Sonia might be with friends, and asked Timer to wait. None of the people interviewed knew where Sonia had gone. Christina and Tim were also actively searching. They searched every part of the city and questioned everyone about Sonia's whereabouts. Their next lead was a young man named Kyun, who was a friend of Sonia and whom she apparently liked, but they couldn't locate him either. All their hopes were placed on the police. However, initially, the Nome police were not interested in searching for Sonia. It was only after the hospital where Sonia worked reported her disappearance that investigators seriously took on the case. Reburn questioned Timer once more. According to her, there is no problem between them. Sonia seemed happy. There were no arguments, and if they ever had misunderstandings, they would talk it out and quickly reconcile. Then, she joined the search operation with many volunteers and, along with her friend, searched for Sonia on the outskirts of the city. A moment later, the police received a call. Timer was hopeful, thinking that Sonia had been found. Indeed, Sonia was found, but the news brought no joy. A few hours earlier, a fireman noticed fresh tire tracks on a deserted road and decided to investigate. Soon, he was at the police station and tell everything. The officer Brand asked the fireman to show the location, and together they went to an abandoned gold mine. What the officer saw there shocked him. Although he couldn't see the woman's face, he immediately knew it was Sonia. When he learned what happened to Sonia, Timer felt extremely painful. Even after 20 years, the pain still lingers in her heart. It was extreme sadness, hopelessness, and anger. She was primarily angry with herself, believing that if she hadn't left Sonia alone to visit her friends for the night, Sonia might still be alive. Meanwhile, the investigation into the terrible murder began. Due to lack of skills and equipment, local detectives had difficulty investigating the case. So they turned to the Alaska Bureau of Investigation, ABI, for help, which specializes in investigating complex crimes such as murder. When investigators arrived, they immediately secured the scene. They using road barriers and shelter tents, fearing that precipitation might destroy important evidence. During their investigation, they discovered blood traces that had been driven over by a car. So, they suspected the perpetrator might have been responsible. Upon closer inspection, detectives noticed an unusual detail about the tire marks. One tread was different from the other three. This suggested that the suspect's vehicle had two different types of tires. Additionally, they found blue paint stains, likely from a vehicle. Because the paint stains are quite high above the ground, investigators theorized that the vehicle could have been an SUV or a truck. Further investigation revealed that Sonia had not been raped. There was no DNA evidence on her body or at the crime scene. This brutal murder has left the town's residents bewildered. And they do not know who is responsible. Sonia, a friendly girl, had no known enemies and hadn't been in conflicts with anyone. Officer Reburn revisited the list of Sonia's friends and was particularly interested in Daniel Ango, also known as Kyun. Tim and Christina had tried to reach him during the search for Sonia, but he did not respond. Police were aware of Kyun because previously, his ex-girlfriend had filed a complaint against him for mistreating her. He was considered a suspect, not only because of his temper but also because he owned a blue truck, have different tires. When investigators examined the vehicle, they discovered a blue awning with blood stains inside, as well as blood on white sneakers and one of the 3 guns in the truck. The tires were tested with a special chemical, revealing additional blood stains. Kyun was brought in for questioning. He stated that he hadn't seen Sonia for 2 weeks. He also was out of town hunting with friends when she disappeared. Despite this, detectives decided to investigate further. Later, he explained that the blood in his car came from a hare he accidentally hit. He said he had to put the hare out of its misery, but then suggested it might have been a porcupine he shot while hunting. With that, the interrogation ended, and he left the police station calmly. Timer and Christina are unhappy with the police investigation and feel it is stalling. A week after Sonia's body was discovered, they went to the known police station and attached a photo of her to the wall outside. An officer came out, told them to leave, and removed the photo. Despite this, Timer showed up at the station every morning at 8 a.m., standing there to demand answers. The public did not know that investigators had identified Kyun as the prime suspect and were not investigating anyone else. However, the detectives were mistaken. The blood found in Kyun's truck was not human, the tire tracks at the crime scene didn't match his vehicle, and the blue paint traces didn't match his truck's color. Kyun's story was true, and the investigation was halted. Only 2 of the 8 local police officers are still actively investigating the case: Officer Reburn, who had received information from Timer about Sonia, and Officer Brian, who was the first to arrive at the crime scene. However, Brian was unhappy with the investigation because he had been assigned to the night shift, which prevented him from conducting interrogations. Red Bear, according to Brian, didn't seem to take his job seriously and was slow to share new information with him. Brian is determined to find out the truth. He decided to review the case file during his night shifts. Suddenly, he noticed a message from a woman. She mentioned that she had seen Sonia while Sonia was missing. She saw Sonia get into the car. This was new information for Brian, and he quickly sought out the woman. He had a detailed conversation with her. The woman's name was Florence. She was surprised that no one had contacted or interviewed her. She explained that she had been standing outside her house with her sister, smoking, when Sonia walked by and greeted them. Then, a car passed by and blocked Sonia's path. He said something to her, after which she got into the car. They drove off in the direction where Sonia's body was found a few days later. Officer Brian thanks Florence and he begins to think about her statement. He was convinced that the ABA agents needed to return to the city and continue the investigation. One detail from Florence's story unsettled Brian. She had seen a sticker on the car Sonia entered, which read Nome Police Department. This suggested that one of his colleagues might be Sonia's killer. He needed to process this information. The ABA team, led by Eric Burette, returned to Nome to investigate Florence's testimony further. Eric informs the group about 2 policemen who were on duty at the station the night Sonia went missing, Matt Ons and Stan Ulker. At that point, both of whom had been with the Nome Police Department for 3 years. There were several people involved in the case, and everyone was required to go to the central office of Polly Angie for questioning and a lie detector test. However, something strange occurred. A couple of weeks after the crime, an officer discovered that a service car was missing. That same night, a search operation was launched. At 2:51, Matt called his colleagues to report that he had found the car in an abandoned area, near where the body was hidden. 2 minutes later, he called again, saying, "There were shots there." Several police officers rushed to the scene, but they found nothing unusual. Police found the missing car in a safe place, dark place. Matt admitted that he was terrified when he heard the shots and thought about his 4-year-old son possibly growing up without a father. He said that perhaps he was not cut out for police work. The officers inspected the stolen car and immediately noticed the broken window on the driver's side. Next, they saw an envelope on the driver's seat, amidst the glass shards. Inside the envelope was a letter, in which the stranger expressed his hatred for the police. They claimed that stealing the car was easy and that Sonia was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, implying that it was not her fault. The person mentioned that Sonia mistook him for a policeman. He warned them to be careful, saying that he was watching their every move. He threatens that if they leave him alone, he would leave them alone, but if they came too close, he would shoot them in the head. The unknown person not only left this threatening letter in the car but also included evidence in the envelope to remove any doubt that he was the one who killed Sonia. Along with the note, police found a membership card for the fitness center Sonia used to visit. How did the criminal steal the police car? It was later discovered that official cars were almost always unlocked, and the keys were often left in the ignition. Therefore, stealing the car is not difficult. Initially, 2 officers, Stan and Matt, were questioned. Their testimonies were almost identical. That evening, they were called to a domestic violence incident. The man who caused the incident attacked them, then he was arrested and taken to the police station. Stan stayed in the office to handle paperwork, while Matt patrolled the streets alone. This occurred between 1 o'clock and 1:30 a.m. Matt reported hearing gunshots, but he spent an hour trying to locate their source without success. His shift ended at 7 a.m., and he went home. Both officers, Stan and Matt, stated they did not see Sonia that night and were not involved in her death. Since their stories matched, a lie detector test was used to further investigate the incident. When asked, did they offer Sonia a ride on August 11, 2003? Both individuals answered no. They gave the same response when questioned about her murder. Further questions focused on Matt's sex life, leaving him confused. It seemed he didn't understand why these questions were being asked. At that time, Matt didn't know that Eric, the lead investigator, was also in the room and is keeping an eye on him. Eric had learned from colleagues that Matt was a typical person, although he didn't always follow the rules. Matt preferred night shifts and often volunteered for them. Occasionally, he invited friends to ride in the patrol car with him, despite repeated warnings from management not to do so. In March 2003, Matt was accused of using his squad car to meet women. He allegedly having sex with them while on duty. Unlike many who use Tinder and similar apps, he had his own method. He would drive slowly in the patrol car, approach women, and offer them rides. When confronted with these allegations, he denied them, and the investigation continued. The city discovered that Matt's personal life was troubled. In a custody battle in court, he is trying to sue his wife for custody of their 4-year-old son. The child currently lives with his mother, but the boy also visits his father because his parents are separated. On the morning of August 12, Matt called his wife to say he couldn't pick up their son because he had to work on a missing girl case, which might take a long time. His wife confirmed this to the FBI. When asked if she was sure the phone conversation took place on August 12, she affirmed with certainty, because that day was her birthday. At that point, when Sonia had not yet been reported missing, then how could Matt know she was missing? On October 25, he was arrested and charged with Sonia's murder. This news didn't surprise everyone. 6 women reported to the police, accusing Matt of not only failing to maintain order and security on the streets but also posing a threat to many people. They felt relieved after his arrest. One woman claimed that when she was drunk, he detained and assaulted her in the squad car. She didn't report it immediately, fearing disbelief due to her intoxication. 2 other complaints were filed against him, but they were not properly addressed. Investigators have no evidence to prove Matt was involved in the murder. They don't know where Sonia's clothes are or where he hid the weapon. And they found nothing suspicious in the patrol cars. The detectives worried that their information wouldn't convince the jury of Matt's guilt. However, they were about another lead, a hunting camp about 30 kilometers from the city. He frequently visited this camp, and a witness saw him burning his gloves there. If true, he might have destroyed other evidence at the camp. At there, investigators thoroughly examined the ashes. Finally, they found an important piece of evidence: burned shoes with laces bearing the imprint of the shoe manufacturer Schumacher. Sonia wore shoes of this brand. The ashes were collected and taken to Nome. Over several days, detectives searched for more evidence. They soon found several more pairs of shoes, parts of a bra, and a button inscribed with LT. Sonia's sister confirmed that the button belonged to Sonia's clothes. A mailbox key was found in the hallway, and it turned out to be the key to Matt's mailbox. Then, a police department employee suggested where the crime weapon might be. Investigators suspected the weapon could be a .22 caliber Jennings pistol, which was indeed found in the storage facility. According to the officers, Matt took it for his criminal activities and later returned it. Unfortunately, this could not be proven due to a lack of evidence. 2 months after Matt's arrest, Sonia's relatives and ABA employees encountered a new issue. He hired an experienced lawyer and was released on bail with his help. The residents of Nome were shocked that the killer was freely roaming their small town, but they were powerless to stop it. Matt's trial began on January 18, 2005, but after 40 hours of jury deliberations, the jury still failed to reach a verdict. The prosecution's evidence was not convincing, and Matt walked out of court again a free man. In the second trial, the prosecution presented evidence to the jury, including Florence's testimony about seeing Sonia get into a car labeled Nome Police Department, Matt's wife's testimony about Sonia's disappearance shortly before Sonia was officially reported missing. Traces of Sonia's clothing found along with the key to a box, and the murder weapon that was stolen and later returned. However, Matt's lawyers challenged all these points. They argued that Matt's wife had likely misremembered the date. They also contended that the traces of clothing and the gun were not connected to Sonia's murder. Because of this conflict, the jury could not reach a consensus on whether Matt was guilty or not, so he was acquitted at trial. This case has made the public extremely indignant. Many believe Matt was guilty of the crime, but he managed to escape justice. Investigator Eric, however, found a new lead. As astonishing as it seems, this is indeed what happened. Eric's neighbor said Charlotte, a friend of Matt's who was staying at his house, shared the news. It turns out Charlotte found a membership card in Matt's bedroom. If so, then this incident may be related to Sonia's murder. Eric asked the neighbor whether Charlotte told him about the discovery before or after the police car was found. It turned out Charlotte mentioned it before the theft. This confirmed Eric's suspicion that Matt stole the car himself to distract the investigation. But who found the patrol car? Matt stated that gunshots were heard 2 minutes after the car was located. That night, Matt left without his service weapon or flashlight. This raised the possibility that he might have planted Sonia's fitness club membership card on the front seat. Charlotte was called as a witness during the second court hearing and questioned again. When asked if she saw Sonia's card or wallet on Matt, she denied it. Despite being under oath, her answers didn't change. Investigators, however, suspected that she might be withholding such information. They were prepared and presented evidence in court of an earlier conversation between the officer and Charlotte. In that discussion, she admitted she had seen Sonia's ID or membership card along with other personal belongings. Charlotte eventually decided to testify in court. Her testimony proved to be crucial. Matt Ons was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 101 years in prison. This tragic incident has left a stain on the city, causing people to lose faith in law enforcement. Sonia's family chose to hold an open casket funeral, allowing everyone to approach and say their final goodbyes. However, justice prevailed, and Matt Ons received the punishment he truly deserved. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Lauren McCluskey. Since she was a child, Lauren McCluskey has been a very talented person. She dances, sings, and is an excellent track and field athlete. She has won many medals and awards. Eventually, she received an offer from the University of Utah and left her hometown of Pullman, Washington to start a new life in Salt Lake City. At the university, she participates in athletics competitions, including the 100-meter dash, hurdles, high jump, shot put, long jump, javelin throw, and 800-meter run. Her talent made her one of the standout athletes on the university team. Besides, she also studies well in the communication department and makes friends with many people. However, in September 2018, her life took a tragic turn. On a Friday evening, Lauren and her friends decided to go dancing and have drinks at a small club near the University of Utah. During the evening, a man caught her attention. As the night wound down, he introduced himself as Sean Phillips, saying he worked as a security guard at the club and was also a student at Salt Lake Community College. He was 28 years old. Despite their age difference, but they quickly found common ground. His charm and interest in her drew her in, and they exchanged phone numbers, planning to meet again the following day to spend more time together. Lauren felt very happy to meet Sean. She even called her mother, Jill McCluskey, to tell her about him. Sean gives her flowers at dinner, tries to be charming and gently proposes. He was tall, muscular, handsome, and very sociable guy. He quickly found common ground with Lauren, an energetic and friendly girl. He often stayed overnight in her dorm room, and she even let him borrow her car. However, some concerning behaviors began to surface. Initially, Sean encouraged Lauren to invite her friends to their gatherings, but then, he started telling her how to dress, usually in a t-shirt and jeans. When she was with her friends, he would constantly call, asking where she was, who she was with, and when she would return. If she didn't respond immediately, he would become upset. Lauren explained to friends that Sean's behavior stemmed from insecurities caused by past relationships and believed that over time, this would improve. Sean begins to explain to Lauren the importance of being careful around others and always being prepared for unfortunate situations that may arise. He bought her a can of pepper spray and insisted she carry it everywhere. He also took her to a shooting range and asked her to purchase a gun for him. Around this time, Lauren cut off all communication with her friends and spent all her time outside of school with Sean, focusing solely on training with him. Concerned, her friends reached out to the dorm staff where she lived. The staff, already uneasy about Sean's frequent presence in the dorms, grew even more alarmed when they discovered that he was tracking Lauren's movements on campus, monitoring her comings and goings. It became evident that he was not just overly jealous but was attempting to control and manipulate Lauren's life. Something was clearly wrong. As it turned out, Sean was not who he had introduced himself to be. One day, Lauren accidentally saw a photo of his ID card and learned the truth. Sean Phillips was not a 28-year-old college student or the kind, trustworthy person he pretended to be. His real name was Melvin Sean Rowland, and in fact he is 38 years old, born in 1981. He was skilled at fabricating stories and concealing his true identity. Investigators later uncovered several women who had been deceived by his lies in different ways. Unknowingly, Lauren had become one of his victims. After seeing his ID card, she begins to realize the truth about him. Melvin's true identity came to light on October 5th when Lauren returned to her home in Pullman, Washington. She confided in a friend, sharing everything that had happened. The friend suggested searching online for information about Melvin Sean Rowland. The search revealed alarming details. Melvin was a sex offender. In 2004, he was convicted of luring a minor and attempting to forcibly harass her. He spent 9 years in state prison and was released on parole in September 2013. Realizing the truth, Lauren knew she had to end the relationship with him. Lauren returns to college in Utah and makes plans to break up with Melvin. On October 9th, she called and asked him to come over. When he arrived, the planned breakup didn't happen, and he stayed the night in Lauren's room. She later told her friends that Melvin had apologized for lying about himself and explained an incident involving a false age claim by a girl at a fraternity party. He insisted that the other allegations against him were untrue. Lauren's friends were doubtful of his story and urged her to end the relationship, which she did the following day. Afterward, Lauren called her mother to explain what had happened. She mentioned that she planned to meet Melvin that evening to get her car back. Her mother, Jill, grew very concerned about the situation. Worrying about her daughter's safety, Jill contacted campus police to inform them and asked them to keep an eye on Lauren while she got her car back. Jill felt uneasy and deeply anxious. Jill dreading the idea of Melvin, who seemed to bring trouble into Lauren's life, being anywhere near she. Lauren was able to pick up her car without any issues, and both she and Melvin carried on with their lives. After that, she had a short period of peace. She focused on her studies and began to rebuild her routine. However, this peace is soon broken by messages sent from unknown phone numbers, all referencing Melvin. Concerned, she contacted the police, leaving a message with the operator, but no one got back to her that day. Then a message arrived from Melvin's number, saying he was fine, but hinting that something strange was happening. Soon after, messages from anonymous numbers continued to arrive, affirmed that they were in possession of sensitive photos of Lauren and Melvin. The sender demanded $10,000, threatening to release the photos online if they do not receive the money. On the morning of October 13th, Melvin emailed Lauren, revealing that he was also being blackmailed. He advised her to pay the money, so she sent $10,000 to the unknown blackmailer. However, she began to suspect that Melvin himself might be behind the blackmail rather than an unknown party. Feeling insecure, she contacted the University of Utah police. The dispatcher forwarded her complaint to Miguel Dasso, a University of Utah police officer. Wanting to address the situation directly, Lauren and her friend walked across campus to speak with the officer in person. When they arrived, they met with the police and told the whole story, including giving Melvin's name and that he was a sex offender. Police believe this was a hoax and that Lauren may have made up the story about the death threat. Lauren and her friend believed that they had taken the necessary steps and that the problem would soon be resolved. Unfortunately, almost no action was taken. Officer Miguel received copies of the messages and images involved, even adding one of the photos to his personal collection. He later bragged to another officer that he could now view it whenever he wanted. Lauren received no follow-up from the university police despite her repeated calls to the station, during which she explained to the dispatcher that she was being blackmailed again. In October, near Lauren's dorm, Melvin was spotted loitering in the parking lot, wearing a suit. About 45 minutes later, she returned to her dorm after track practice. At the time, no one knew who Melvin was. She entered the dorm and went upstairs. Shortly afterward, Melvin, now dressed as Deadpool, approached the dorm door. He later claimed he knew Lauren had called the police, leading her to suspect that someone at the police department had informed him about the situation. Lauren had forgotten that a few weeks ago, she had used Melvin's phone to log in and check her email. This gave him access to her communications with the police, friends, and family without her realizing it. She contacted the Salt Lake City police, hoping they could connect her with another department for assistance. However, under the jurisdictional rules, police said they were not of much help, as their jurisdiction was limited to campus. This also prevents Officer Miguel from taking action outside of campus. Additionally, some have suggested that Lauren's assumption that someone in the police department had leaked information to Melvin may make her paranoid. Phone records revealed that she called both police departments multiple times over several days, desperately seeking a solution. On October 22nd, the situation took a dire turn. CCTV footage showed Melvin leaving his apartment at 6 a.m. He rented a car from his neighbor and drove to the parking lot in front of Lauren's dorm, arriving at 9 a.m. He walked toward the building just as she was leaving her dorm. Around that time, she received a text message, supposedly from Deputy Chief McLennan of the University Police, asking her to come to the station to review evidence. Sensing something was off, she ignored the message and instead went to meet with a counselor, who had been helping her deal with the breakup and its aftermath. At that time, Melvin was in the same building as Lauren. He was carrying a small suitcase. He was looking for she but couldn't find her, so he went to her dorm instead. There, he managed to gain access. Once inside, he spoke with a group of 4 students. Over time, 3 of them left, leaving 1 student behind. The remaining student later told police that Melvin asked if he wanted to see what was inside the suitcase. Inside was a .40 caliber Beretta pistol and a full magazine. He even let the student handle the gun before leaving. Meanwhile, Lauren had finished her evening class and was preparing to return to her dorm. It had been a difficult week, so she decided to call her parents and take a short walk across campus while talking to them. At the same time, Melvin left the dorm, intending to intercept her on her usual route back. As Lauren walked, she told her parents about her day, and they listened closely. Suddenly, they heard her scream as Melvin began chasing her. Her father, Matthew, immediately called 911. Melvin grabbed Lauren, forced her into the car with a gun and pushed her into the back seat. Then, he shooting her 7 times at close range. After opening fire, he drove through the parking lot, crossed the bridge and continued straight to the nearest subway station in Salt Lake. There, he waited calmly at a bus stop and made a phone call, having already arranged for someone to pick him up. A woman eventually arrived, and he got into her car. The 2 went out for dinner and took a walk around a nearby building, attempting to appear as though they were casually spending time together, likely to create an alibi for the time of the murder. Meanwhile, police began searching the area. This side, Lauren's parents are dying to know what's going on with their daughter. Students and volunteers began searching west of the North Medical Tower. A team of 6 officers, along with a police dog, joined the search, moving north. Eventually, they discovered Lauren's body inside a silver vehicle. Police cordoned off the crime scene and initiated a nationwide manhunt for Melvin. Authorities had been repeatedly warned that he posed a danger to Lauren, but by the time they acted, it was too late. Now, their only focus was capturing her killer, Melvin. At this time, Melvin was still on the run. He rushed into Trinity Church in Salt Lake City to seek refuge. Police followed him into the building. They also knew that he had weapons and ready to fight back. They searched the church room by room until a single gunshot rang out. Melvin ended his life. When officers found him, the manhunt ended. However, the tragedy was far from over. Lauren, an innocent young woman, was murdered, causing people to demand clarity on the matter. Why had no one taken even the simplest measures to prevent this? How could someone who had pleaded for help and provided all the necessary information be so blatantly ignored? The university had failed to conduct even a basic background check on Melvin. Why hadn't they done so? If they had looked into his history and contacted his probation officer, he will be sent back to prison soon. He has been incarcerated for violating the terms of his probation and has a history of making provocative statements during his parole hearings. When reporters asked Melvin's parole officer if he could have been sent back to prison, the officer made it clear Melvin would have been arrested immediately if the police department informed them of his actions. Officer Miguel Dasso has left the University of Utah Police Force to join the Logan Police Department. However, after his actions came to light, he was promptly fired. Under state obscenity laws, he faces charges for mishandling evidence and showing it to another officer. These charges were later dropped because a data analysis of his phone showed insufficient evidence. Although the charges were dismissed, his actions caused significant harm. What is particularly troubling is that the district attorney has decided not to proceed with the case against him. The case also raises questions about where Melvin got the gun he used. As a parolee and convicted felon, he was legally prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm. Investigations revealed that he acquired the gun through a friend, who was also a convicted felon. The friend had his girlfriend purchase the gun on Melvin's behalf. If the gun had not been handed to Lauren would likely still be alive. The McCluskey family sued the University of Utah and its police force, accusing them of being irresponsible and incompetent in handling Lauren's request for help. The lawsuits, initially seeking $56 million, were resolved through settlements. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Charlotte Brown. 20-year-old Charlotte Brown from Essex, a county in the southeast of England, was having a conversation with her sister Katie and a friend. They were discussing where to meet a young man. Charlotte shared that she was looking for a serious, long-term relationship and wasn't very interested in dating sites. However, her sister suggested a new dating site to her, and after some consideration, Charlotte signed up. Soon after, she received a message from a 24-year-old named Jack Shepard. They began chatting online and got to know each other better. Things were going well. Jack and Charlotte planned to meet in person. However, on the day of their meeting, Jack sent Charlotte a text message apologizing and explaining that he couldn't meet because he was getting back together with his ex-girlfriend. Feeling frustrated, Charlotte decided to block Jack and continued her search for love on the site. A few months later, Jack reached out to Charlotte again. He expressed his sincere apologies for disappointing her and asked if they could meet to make amends. Charlotte agreed to go on a date with him. On December 8, 2015, Jack wanted to impress Charlotte, so he took her to the Shard, a well-known skyscraper in London. While enjoying wine and conversation, they seemed to be having a great time. Charlotte took photos and shared them with her sister. Later, Jack invited her to his boathouse to continue their evening, and she agreed. After Jack paid the bill, they took a taxi to his place, which was 10 miles away from Charlotte's home in Hammersmith. When they arrived at the boathouse and had a drink, Jack bragged about his boat and suggested they go out. Charlotte loved the idea, as she was hoping for a romantic adventure. She sent a text message to her sister, letting her know about the boat trip, but her sister appeared worried about the matter. Charlotte reassured her sister that everything would be fine. Charlotte had a great time on the boat, capturing the moments in photos and videos to send to her sister. They were sailing along the Thames one December night. Charlotte was laughing and even shouting with excitement. However, Jack began to speed up, and soon they were going twice the speed limit on the river. Witnesses observed the boat speeding along the Thames. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by a cry for help. People called 911 to report that someone had fallen into the river and needed help nearby. Jack was holding on to the sides of the boat with his hands. The boat capsized near Onslow Bridge after hitting a submerged log. Police arrived at the scene and began searching the area, assisted by officers from the Marine Corps Support Unit and Air Support. At 11:40 p.m. that night, they found Jack clinging to the side of a boat, but Charlotte was missing. The Air Support Unit lit up the river with powerful searchlights to search for the Charlotte. When the lifeboat arrived, they discovered Charlotte, but she showed no signs of life. They attempted CPR on Charlotte, but it was to no avail. Her body grew colder and colder, and by the time she reached the hospital, she was pronounced dead. An autopsy revealed that Charlotte had died from prolonged exposure to cold water. The next day, the police brought in Jack Shepard for questioning. Meanwhile, Charlotte's sister Katie had been texting her and was growing increasingly worried as she had not received a response throughout the night. Although Katie was busy with work during the day and could not be reached, it was clear that all of her texts and calls had gone unanswered. Additionally, Charlotte had not shown up for work, which was very unusual for her. Charlotte's mother was at home when the doorbell rang. She opened the door to two police officers who delivered the devastating news that Charlotte had died. This left her family and friends utterly heartbroken. During the investigation, Jack mentioned that he had met Charlotte around 6 p.m. for a date. He said they had never met before but had planned to go to the Shard and then return to his boat. Jack noted that he had trouble recalling the details of the evening. Jack said that he had been the one steering the boat. They had then switched positions. When Charlotte was steering the boat, he moved to a seat while holding on to the crossbar because of the speed. Jack mentioned that there were life jackets on the boat, but they had not worn them because he had not told Charlotte about them. He also noted that he was not sure if she knew how to swim because they had not discussed it. They had been drinking on the boat, but his memory of the whole thing was hazy. After the incident, Jack went to a restaurant, ordered a bottle of wine, had a meal, and drank another bottle of wine before taking a taxi home. He said his memory of the entire evening was hazy. According to Jack, Charlotte wanted to steer the boat and he allowed her to do so. His memory is unclear due to his intoxication, but he always remembered that Charlotte was at the helm. He said that when he got into the water, he called out to Charlotte, but she was gone. He was eventually rescued from the river, but Charlotte's bag, which contained documents, keys, wallet, and mobile phone, was never found because it had fallen into the water. During police questioning of Jack, he appeared very upset. He was described as a well-dressed, well-educated young man who repeatedly claimed that Charlotte was the boatman and blamed her for the incident. Shockingly, many who knew Charlotte or heard of what happened were largely critical of her. Jack told the police that he had taken about 10 girls out on his boat before, returning to the house for fun afterward. When asked whether he took all of his dates on the river, he stated that these boat rides were simply part of his usual routine to impress and charm girls. The police then inspected the boat and discovered it was old, had been involved in multiple accidents, and had undergone several repairs. It had many other serious flaws, making it dangerously unsafe. Charlotte's friend Lodi became curious about Jack and sought to learn more about him. She discovered that Jack was 30 years old, a successful web designer and developer, and enjoyed flaunting his wealth. Jack created his own online dating site that focused on facilitating brief encounters, typically for 1 or 2 meetings. On Facebook, Jack had numerous photos of himself, both alone and with friends and women. He referred to himself as Captain Jack and often bragged about himself. The police wanted to question Jack again, but he arrived with his lawyer, who presented a statement on his behalf. In this statement, Jack claimed that his memories of that night were unclear and incomplete. He confirmed that he was on a boat with Charlotte and that a girl was driving at the time of the accident. However, he had no recollection of the crash or the events leading up to it, except that Charlotte was at the helm of the boat. After the lawyer read the statement, Jack was asked numerous questions. But he chose not to respond to any of them. When an officer criticized him for not giving Charlotte a chance to save herself by not providing her with a life jacket, Jack remained silent. Later, the police chief learned that the day after the accident, on February 9th, Jack went directly from the police station to the registry office to apply for a marriage license with his longtime girlfriend. In November, they welcomed a child. This means that after Charlotte's death, Jack got married and then moved to Wales with his wife. He wanted to get away from where Charlotte died and start over somewhere where no one would recognize him. He wanted to forget the past and start a new life. The police decided not to close the case because they sensed something was off. They quietly kept an eye on Jack's activities. The search for Charlotte's belongings, which were lost in the river, continued. Eventually, they discovered her bag and mobile phone. It took nearly a year to recover, clean, and dry these items. When the experts examined the phone, they found a video from that night. the footage revealed that Jack was the one driving the boat, not Charlotte. It became clear that Jack was attempting to shift the blame to Charlotte for her own death. In the video, Charlotte could be heard shouting that the boat was going too fast, highlighting that Jack had lied about who was actually at the helm. They inspected the boat again. The police discovered life jackets hidden on the boat, which no one had used because Jack had not informed anyone about them. It was concluded that it was unlikely the girl was both driving the boat and filming the video at the same time, especially since Jack was frequently seen on camera standing behind the wheel. On September 20, 2017, Jack was charged with manslaughter due to gross negligence. By October 2017, he appeared in court and was released on bail. However, on January 26, 2018, Jack failed to appear in court and pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. Meanwhile, the trial for Charlotte's death was approaching quickly. It was mid-May when Jack informed his legal team that he would not attend the hearing. He was determined not to go. When the trial began in July 2018, Jack followed through with his plan and did not appear in court. In contrast, Charlotte's family attended throughout the trial. They were understandably upset and informed on the first day that Jack would not be present. Jack's lawyers communicated with him online, sharing court documents for him to review and comment on. However, they did not know his exact location. Many were angry when Jack chose not to attend the trial, despite having legal representation. He seemed to believe that he was above the law and did not feel the need to be present because he claimed innocence. Jack repeatedly asserted his innocence and tried to blame Charlotte. Instead of appearing in court to defend himself or claim he did nothing wrong, he simply chose to hide. The court had to determine that Jack, as the owner of the boat, had a responsibility to ensure the safety of everyone on board, including Charlotte. The judge spent about 20 minutes looking at photos of the boat because they wanted to get an idea of the type of vessel Jack was using. All of Jack's girlfriends discovered that he had purchased an old boat at a low price from a website that sells second-hand items. Although the boat was in poor condition and required significant repairs, Jack, who had a good income, chose not to invest in fixing it. Instead, he used the boat for evening outings with his girlfriends. The court also found out that Jack had a date in August, shortly before he met Charlotte. As usual, their evening included a boat ride, during which they were stopped by the river police. The officers warned them about the importance of wearing life jackets to prevent any accidents. Jack had met this girl, like Charlotte and the others, on a dating site. They enjoyed their time together. He took her to the Shard, bought her drinks, invited her to his home, and then took her for a boat ride. However, he drove the boat at such a high speed that she became very frightened. Finally, she asked Jack to stop, let her off the shore, and call a taxi for her. The girl was called to court to testify. On July 10, 2018, Jack Shepherd was found guilty of manslaughter. Shortly after, news emerged that he had gone into hiding. His legal team tried to reach him, but he did not respond. On July 26, Jack was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown, yet his whereabouts remained unknown. Police launched an international search for Jack and offered a $25,000 reward for any information leading to his whereabouts. It was eventually discovered that Jack had fled to Turkey and then moved to Georgia. British media discovered his residence in Georgia, revealing that he was living in dire conditions. He wanted to appeal his sentence, and eventually, a lawyer suggested he go on television to share his side of the story. Jack consistently claimed that he did not remember the events of that night. His memories were vague. In every statement, he mentioned that he only recalled how Charlotte switched places with him on the boat and took his seat, after which the accident occurred. In the interview Jack prepared, he was more open about what transpired, yet he still blamed Charlotte for her death. He refused to accept any responsibility and instead spread misinformation to the media. Jack then surrendered to the Georgian police. He believed he could contest his extradition with the assistance of a lawyer who claimed his innocence. He also hoped to have his conviction overturned. However, he was extradited back to the UK to serve his 6-year prison sentence for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown. Charlotte's mom expressed her deep sorrow, saying that words cannot capture how incredible her daughter was. She described Charlotte as her best daughter and closest friend. She wants Jack Shepherd to understand that while he enjoys his life with his family, she struggles to find joy in her own life. She shared that the experience has been overwhelmingly painful and it's impossible to fully convey the suffering her family endured. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Monica McCarrick. Tori and her twin sister Lily Ball were born in September 2007 to parents Monica McCarrick and Michael Ball, who lived in San Diego, California. Their relationship was difficult from the start, partly due to their 10-year age gap. Monica struggled with substance abuse, which often led to her run-ins with the police. In 2006, she was arrested for domestic violence and given probation, but her aggressive behavior continued, eventually leading to the couple's divorce. Following the split, Michael filed for custody of the twins in 2009. Monica's life took a new turn. She began dating Robert Paulson, her first love. They had been friends for over 10 years and their long-distance relationship began on Thanksgiving Day 2009 when Monica discovered her ex's social media page and contacted him. They began communicating as friends. However, Robert was in a relationship with another girl named Jill. In April 2010, a tragic event occurred when Jill took her own life with Robert's gun. Robert had a passion for guns and owned a collection that included a samurai sword and an agile rifle. After this heartbreaking incident, Monica supported Robert through his grief and they became closer, eventually starting a romantic relationship. In May 2010, Monica and the children moved to Pennsylvania. Their romance progressed quickly, leading to their engagement just days later. Monica was very happy during this time. She became a devoted mother, worked as a manager at a dental office, and pursued further education. Robert was also happy, and it seemed like their lives were improving. Unfortunately, this story would not have a happy ending. In August 2010, Monica and Robert moved to California while still planning their wedding. They rented an apartment in a residential area in Fairfield. Monica was looking for a school for her daughters and had obtained her license to practice dentistry. Robert supported her and admired her dedication as a mother to ensuring a good future for her daughters. He appreciated her calm demeanor. Robert worked for a film crew, which required him to travel for filming, resulting in him being absent for long periods of time. On September 9, 2010, just a month after moving to California, Robert was called away on a long business trip to film a movie in Minnesota. This left him with no choice but to leave, which upset Monica. She was not ready to let him go, as she still had unresolved issues from the move and wanted to improve their life together. Monica nevertheless agreed to let Robert go on the business trip. At first, everything seemed fine, but about 3 weeks after he left, Robert began to notice that Monica's behavior had changed significantly. She began to act very strangely. Monica discovers a script written by Robert that depicts a horror story about a man who chases children down a beach, ultimately leading to their deaths. Monica understands that the script is about her family and fears for her children's safety. However, Robert denied all of this. Robert insisted that it was a work of fiction related to his work. Throughout Robert's business trip, Monica frequently brought up her concerns in conversation. Eventually, she began to claim that Robert's previous girlfriend had died because of him. Monica suspected that Robert was involved with another woman at the time and believed that his affair contributed to his ex-girlfriend's tragic decision. Robert spent hours on the phone and texting Monica to calm her down. Unfortunately, this only worked for a short time before she began to express new suspicions. People who came into contact with her during this time noticed her paranoid behavior. Monica wanted Robert to stay home and objected to his long business trips. Robert reassured her that his trip to Minnesota would be over soon and that she was eagerly awaiting his return. On the day before his return, Robert's manager informed him that he would need to stay in Alaska for another 5 to 10 days to finish filming, as they had found the ideal location for some of the missing scenes. When he shared this news with Monica, she became extremely upset. She tried her best to convince him to return home with her and the children, saying that she could not handle the situation on her own. Although she pleaded for help, Robert felt helpless and asked her to be patient a little longer. Monica was not completely alone, her family supported her. However, Robert noticed that her mental state seemed unstable. Her friends, who remained in contact with her during this time, often mentioned this in their conversations. On September 25, Monica contacted her friend Regina, expressing that she feared for her life. Monica truly believed that Robert and his mother might harm her. She asked Regina to contact the police if anything happened to her. That same day, Monica contacted her friend Maritza to express her concerns about Robert and his family. She stressed that she felt unsafe and feared for the safety of her children. Maritza called her to discuss the matter further. During the conversation, Monica shared that her suspicions were related to a script Robert had written that depicted a murder involving a woman and her children. Maritza reassured Monica, and for a moment things seemed to calm down, but the calm did not last long. Maritza received another alarming text message 3 days later, on September 29th. In this message, Monica claimed that someone wanted to kidnap her children and harm her. She also contacted another friend, Pamela, expressing her fear that Robert intended to harm her. Monica was genuinely afraid for her safety, but she also hoped that her fears were paranoid. She stressed that if she or her children went missing, it was important to contact the police and hold Robert accountable. Unfortunately, Pamela was unable to visit Monica this time because she was in another city visiting her mother. The conversation ended with Monica declaring her intention to go to the police to prove Robert's involvement in the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Jill. However, many of her text messages were inconsistent. She expressed stress about raising her children, feeling overwhelmed by having to deal with the problems on her own. This confused the Pamela, who knew that Robert worked hard to provide for the family. At the same time, Monica often mentioned her desire to be free, to relax, and to enjoy herself. Michael often took the Tori and Lily out, giving Monica a chance to relax. She also had many friends and family to lean on. Not everyone was able to respond immediately to Monica when a problem arose, but they were able to reach her within a few hours to offer their support. They constantly help her. Friends and acquaintances noted that in Pennsylvania, Monica was much calmer and handled everyday problems well, even when she was alone. However, when she moved to California, where all her relatives and friends lived, she became panicky about Robert's absence. From September 29th to October 4th, 2010, Monica and her children traveled to San Diego to visit their mother. During this visit, she shared a script written by Robert, which frightened her. She was also concerned about the many weapons stored in the home. She feared that Robert intended to harm them with these weapons and discussed her concerns with her mother. Monica was clearly nervous and anxious about her upcoming wedding. However, after she and her daughters went shopping for wedding dresses, her mood changed. Monica seemed happy and excited, taking many pictures of the dress she had chosen and sending them to friends and family, including one to her grandmother, Terry Faye. They had a close relationship, with her grandmother visiting regularly and supporting her. On October 11th, Monica called her grandmother Terry again and expressed her fear of losing her daughter and her concerns for her own safety. However, during this call, Terry noticed that Monica's behavior was unusual. Monica's situation is confusing. She has moved across the country in search of a better life, hoping to be closer to her family. Her goal is to marry Robert and build a life with him and their children. However, she frequently expresses fears for her safety, especially around Robert. Despite her fear of Robert, she pursues the marriage. Meanwhile, Michael is fighting for custody of their twins. Robert's mother, Roxanne, became increasingly concerned about Monica. While her son was away, she noticed that Monica was losing control. Monica handled things well at first, but as time went on, her instability became more apparent. Roxanne often takes Tori and Lily for walks, giving Monica time to rest. Occasionally, Monica and the children would visit Roxanne. An alarming incident occurred while Monica was sleeping at Roxanne's house. She suddenly woke up around 3 in the morning and began to prepare for something. Roxanne heard a noise and went outside to check what was going on. Monica pointed to a car parked on the street near her house, believing that someone was following her, which made her very nervous. Roxanne, knowing the owner of the car, tried to reassure Monica. The car belonged to a neighbor who had just returned home late from work. He had lived in the area for a long time, was a devoted family man and did not pose any threat to them. Monica's concerns did not subside, so she took her daughters and went home, insisting she did not feel safe. When she returned home, she began to feel more comfortable. The next morning, she informed Robert's mother, Roxanne, that she was feeling fine. In the afternoon, she called Roxanne at work, saying that a delivery man had come to her house and hinted that he might be part of a plot to harm her. Despite Roxanne's attempts to calm her down, Monica remained restless. She then tried to call her mother, but her mother was at work and could not talk for long. Her mother reassured Monica to calm down. Monica replied that everything was fine and then ended the call. The next morning, October 12th, the neighborhood manager came to Monica's apartment to ask her to move her car. She parked her car blocking several other parking spaces. When the manager knocked on the door, Monica was too scared to open it. After a long conversation through the door, Monica finally agreed to open the door and go outside to park her car properly. During this time, the manager noticed that Monica's 2 daughters, Tori and Lily, were in the apartment and they seemed okay. Monica called in to take time off work so she could get a new hairstyle for her wedding. While she was on the phone, her manager noticed a child crying in the background. Robert later spoke to Monica on the phone and via text messages. He found her messages confusing and included some inappropriate quotes. From what he could understand, it sounded like she was talking about children. One message read, "Let the bunnies go away forever." Robert understood this to be a reference to the custody battle involving Monica's ex-husband, Michael, who was seeking full custody. It was likely that the court would award custody to Michael, which would mean that Lily and Tori could be separated from Monica. With her past issues with substance abuse and mental health, she was at risk of losing her parental rights. However, Robert was busy and didn't think much of the message. That evening, Monica and Robert spoke on the phone. Monica was very difficult to understand, speaking very quickly and seeming to move around her apartment, with a lot of background noise. She hung up several times but called back immediately. She insisted that whatever had happened should be considered an accident. It was unclear what she meant, but her tone was very disturbing. Monica also mentioned that she had planned to start a fire with her children. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off, and he heard Monica scream before the call abruptly ended. Worried, Robert kept calling Monica, but no one answered. Worried, he contacted the police to check on her. It felt like a horrible nightmare, but he had no idea that the situation was much more horrifying than he could have imagined. Monica fed Tori and Lily and tied them to high chairs. She then took a samurai sword from the wall in Robert's office and began to violently attack the children. Within minutes, Monica had killed Tori and Lily and used their bodies to barricade the apartment door before setting the apartment on fire. The neighbors only heard the children's short cries and some noises, which did not arouse any suspicion. When the fire alarm rang, it was too late. The downstairs neighbor noticed smoke coming from the apartment above and called the police. After calling, he quickly ran upstairs and broke down the door, but it wouldn't open. He then tried to enter through the sliding window of the third-floor apartment. Luckily, he was able to reach the window and get in. The room was filled with thick smoke, making it difficult to see. When the neighbor entered the area where the tragic incident with the children took place, the entire floor was covered in blood, and there was a sword and a medicine bottle on the ground, which could have been the murder weapon. Unfortunately, it was too late to save Tori and Lily. When police arrived, they were unable to enter the home immediately because the children's bodies were blocking the front door. After some struggle, they were able to get inside. The entire apartment was filled with smoke, and the fire was in the pantry next to the front door. After the fire was extinguished and the smoke cleared, the rescue team discovered the children's bodies. They also found Monica, who was unconscious and had suffered multiple serious injuries that appeared to be self-inflicted. Monica was rushed to the medical center in critical condition. Her injuries included lacerations to her neck and hands, several severed fingers, and severed tendons. Both ankles were injured, and there was a deep wound to her thigh. During a search of the apartment, police found several weapons, including a loaded rifle, a shotgun, and a loaded pistol. A significant amount of live ammunition was discovered in the hallway, along with a sword and a lighter that Monica used to start a fire in the pantry. 2 high chairs, which were overturned and covered in blood, indicated that the children were eating when the murder occurred, as trays with plates and food were found scattered on the floor. A laptop displaying cartoons was in front of them. The kitchen table was also smeared with blood, suggesting that there was an attempt to clean it hurriedly. Additionally, a thrilling novel by James Patterson about a serial killer was opened to a page that read, "My daughter died." During the analysis of the vial, forensic experts found no dangerous or powerful drugs. During the autopsy, they discovered multiple injuries on Tori and Lily. Tori had 11 cuts on her face and deep wounds on the front of her neck. On her chest, there were 9 shallow cuts and 2 stab wounds. One punctured her lung and the other punctured her heart. Lily had multiple injuries, including 5 cuts on her face and neck and 9 cuts on her chest, including one so severe that it nearly severed her head. The sword had severed Lily's larynx and arteries. The children's arms were the most injured, suggesting the twins had attempted to defend themselves. None of the girls inhaled smoke from the fire, indicating that they were already dead when the fire started, as there was no soot in their lungs. The brutality of their murders shocked all the experts involved in the case. Shortly after being released from the hospital, 27-year-old Monica was arrested and charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder, arson, attempting to destroy evidence, and obstructing the investigation. Confined to a wheelchair and covered in bandages, she appeared in court on October 26, 2010, where she did not plead guilty. Monica argued that her crime was a result of insanity, leading to her being sent for a psychiatric evaluation from October 2010 to June 2011. A prison psychiatrist met with her more than 10 times, spending around 20 hours in discussions, conducting various psychological tests, reviewing her medical records, and speaking with her family members. The psychiatrist found that when Monica was 14, she had displayed similar self-harming behaviors. At that time, she was diagnosed with a type of attention deficit disorder and prescribed medication to manage it. However, she did not complete her treatment and later began abusing illegal drugs, which resulted in her developing bipolar disorder. The Monica stated that she started drinking alcohol at 12 and began using marijuana at 14, which ultimately led to her becoming addicted to illegal drugs by 18. From 2003 to 2005, she was diagnosed with depression while living in San Diego and received professional psychiatric treatment. After Robert went on a business trip, she relapsed and used drugs throughout September and October 2010. Monica reported experiencing paranoid thoughts, common in heavy users. She confessed to her psychiatrist that she had been heavily intoxicated in the 4 days before the crime. Monica often told her doctor that her addiction made it difficult for her to communicate with her children. As a result, she often tried to stay away from them, sometimes leaving them with strangers. She called her loved ones several times, seeking their help, and they tried to support her. However, the psychiatrist revealed that Monica's problems were not only due to illegal drugs. In the days leading up to the tragic event, she experienced delusions, paranoia, and feelings of being persecuted. She believed that Robert and his mother were planning to kidnap her daughters and torture them, a fear that was heightened by a story Robert wrote. In prison, she told a psychiatrist that she had read in a book the exact time that the attackers would arrive to try to enslave her daughter. The psychiatrist recognized this as a symptom known as reference ideas, in which the patient believes that ordinary events contain hidden messages. Monica was convinced that certain events were destined to happen. Monica believed that this was a sign that her children would be enslaved. In her desperation to save Tori and Lily, she realized that even if she saved them from Robert, she could still lose them if her ex-husband Michael won custody in court. This led her to the tragic conclusion that her daughters needed to be killed. Which she did. However, despite her serious actions, her thought process showed that she was still quite sane, despite some mental health issues. She planned to barricade the door so that it could not be opened immediately and only set it on fire after killing her children, with the intention of covering up what had happened. Another psychiatrist, after speaking with the Monica, concluded that she was not fully aware of her actions. He believed that Monica thought she was saving her children when she brutally killed them. On October 25, 2011, while in prison, Monica confided to a fellow inmate that she was hearing voices. By November, she began to have paranoid thoughts, fearing that she would be attacked. In April 2012, she overdosed while still incarcerated. Monica reported using illegal drugs, and prison guards observed that she drank up to 12 cups of coffee a day, which worsened her mental state. She frequently expressed concerns about threats to her life from prison gangs and often attempted to communicate with doctors and other professionals. But her reports were inconsistent, unclear, and sometimes completely false. Her psychological evaluation hearings dragged on. Michael attended the trial and asked not to show mercy to the Monica who'd taken the lives of the babies. The final decision was up to the jury. After hours of deliberation, they concluded that Monica had intentionally killed Tori and Lily. On June 15, 2012, Monica McCarrick was convicted of first-degree murder. The jury sentenced Monica to 2 consecutive life terms in state prison without the possibility of parole. During her trial, she cried. She told the court that she was praying for everyone's well-being, despite her own deteriorating condition. Monica expressed that she loved her daughters. Monica is currently serving her sentence in a California prison and has attempted to appeal her sentence multiple times. On August 22, 2019, an online petition was started, urging the governor of California to overturn Monica's sentence. The petition claims that nearly all psychiatric experts who have reviewed her case believe she was not aware of her actions when the crime occurred, However, as of now, only 144 people have signed the petition, and Monica is still incarcerated. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Nicole Pitts. Nicole Pitts was born in late February 1973 and grew up in King County. She attended Eastern Washington College. Every summer, her family traveled to Seattle and spent much of their time at Lake Samash. Nicole had a close relationship with her mother, Gail, and had a good relationship with her father, Rod. In the 1990s, while working at a fitness club, she met her future husband, David. Their relationship quickly developed into a romantic relationship. After spending some time together, they married in 2002 in Maui, Hawaii. In 2005, the couple bought a condominium in Linwood, Washington, a place where they could enjoy their time together. At that time, Linwood was a quiet town with a population of fewer than 40,000 people. It featured narrow streets and many bars and restaurants, similar to their previous home. The young family quickly fell in love with the area. Nicole was outgoing and made friends easily. Within days of moving in, she had made many new friends. She is an animal lover and often walks her dog around the neighborhood or relaxes at home with her 2 cats. She cares for them as if they were her own children. Nicole's career was going well. After finishing school, she worked at a fitness club for a while, before becoming a corporate manager at a mobile phone company. She lived close to where she worked. Nicole was an important member of the team because she easily connected with her colleagues and helped them solve problems. However, she faced challenges from an early age. She was introduced to alcohol as a teenager and eventually became an alcoholic. This started when her parents divorced, which left her feeling lost. Her mother, a flight attendant, was often away on business trips, so Nicole was often left in the care of her elderly grandmother, which led to her hanging out with the wrong crowd. Fortunately, Nicole's parents noticed their daughter's issue early on, and with the support of her family, she was able to overcome her bad habit. They attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings together, where she received guidance, making her journey easier. However, her alcohol use had lasting effects, resulting in significant health problems. At age 21, Nicole was diagnosed with endometriosis and underwent 3 surgeries. Following these procedures, she was prescribed pain medication to control her chronic pain. By 2006, 32-year-old Nicole had been avoiding alcohol for 8 years. Despite this, she remained an active and valuable member of her Alcoholics Anonymous group. She attended every meeting, viewing them not just as a way to manage her own recovery, but also as an opportunity to support others in their struggles. Nicole understood the challenges of the fight against addiction. From a young age, she had a passion for cooking, which only grew stronger over time. She loved preparing a variety of dishes and often brought her homemade meals to work for her husband, David, who always appreciated her efforts. Nicole was very close to her mother and called her every day. In early 2006, she was excited about her upcoming 33rd birthday. However, just 2 days before her birthday, she unexpectedly missed an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in nearby Renton, surprising everyone. That night, David returned home late from work and went straight to bed, thinking Nicole would still be home. However, the next morning, he discovered that she had left, and he never saw her again. David tried calling Nicole to check on her, but she didn't answer his calls. He was worried that she might be upset because he hadn't spoken to her at dinner the night before and had gone to bed early from exhaustion. Despite his attempts to contact her, Nicole remained silent, which made him even more worried. He also contacted some of her friends and her mother, but no one had seen her. That evening, when David returned home and Nicole had not returned, he became alarmed. Worried, he decided to go to the sheriff's office, but was told that there was not enough time to classify her as missing. However, David convinced the police to investigate her whereabouts, as her behavior was very unusual, and he feared that something might have happened to her. Police arrived at David's home and discovered that, in addition to Nicole, her 2003 Volkswagen Jetta was also missing. Nicole had left for work that morning, but was gone. Her mother became concerned about Nicole's disappearance, especially since she had not received any calls from her daughter all day, which worried her. After police confirmed that no one had seen Nicole since she went missing, they began searching for her that same day. The family of the Nicole booked flights to Washington, hoping for the best and wanting to assist in finding their daughter as quickly as possible. Everyone was confused because Nicole was known to be reliable and responsible. She would never have vanished or ignored calls. Even if she couldn't answer right away, she would have called back soon. As her silence continued, her parents and husband grew increasingly worried. Those involved in the search for Nicole sprang into action immediately. Nicole's mother and stepfather went straight to the police upon arriving in the city. Members of the Alcoholics Anonymous Club, who cared deeply for Nicole and wanted to support her family, also joined the search efforts. The club was significant to Nicole, as she never missed a meeting and was set to receive an award for 8 years of sobriety, which she took great pride in. There was no reason for her to leave or abandon everything. Nicole's voicemail was filled with calls from friends and family, but none of them had been able to reach her. Some were concerned that Nicole might have relapsed, despite successfully battling her addiction for years. The police were actively searching for her, searching the surrounding areas of Linwood, but they found nothing. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents took action by creating a website to gather information about Nicole. Many people responded to the family's call for help, but most of the messages were just well wishes, and the little information they received turned out to be false. The search seemed to stall until a new event changed the course of the investigation. On February 7, a local resident was jogging near a wooded area of San Francisco Park, near a small lake. He accidentally discovered a strange object under a raspberry bush. Curious, he approached and was horrified to discover the body of a girl. A nearby witness quickly called the police. The police arrived in time, and acquaintances recognized the body as Nicole's. Forensic experts later confirmed that there was no evidence of rape. After the autopsy in the laboratory, it was proven that the Nicole had received multiple injuries during the beating, but the cause of death was asphyxia. The Nicole had multiple blunt force injuries on her legs, torso, and head, indicating a brutal murder driven by personal hatred. This raised the question, who could have done this? Nicole had no known enemies. The case was changed from a disappearance to a murder investigation. The news of her death was devastating for David and parents. News of her death devastated David and her parents. Police began investigating her bank card transactions to trace her final movements. They discovered that her card was last used on January 30 in a nearby town where she had paid for gas. Police requested video footage from the gas station, suspecting that the killer may have made the purchase instead of Nicole and hoping to identify him in the footage. While police wait for surveillance camera footage, they continue to search for Nicole's car, as it may contain important information for the case. Police reviewed Nicole's identity and social connections, but still found no clues. Nicole was known as one of the friendliest members of her work group and club. She had no enemies. Instead, she was a devoted friend, a loving wife, a caring daughter, and a skilled employee who loved her pets. Nicole even turned her own struggle with alcohol into a positive by supporting others who were trying to get sober, setting an example for them. While the police were searching for the car, her relatives and friends shared information about the missing car and Nicole's situation. They publicly appealed for help, urging people to be aware of the car and avoid touching it. Flyers were distributed that stressed the importance of calling the police immediately if the car was discovered. as the car was linked to Nicole's murder. This prompted local residents to pay attention to Nicole's car. On February 21, 2006, her car was discovered parked near the university. Police quickly seized the car for forensic analysis, hoping to gather evidence to arrest the perpetrator and piece together the events surrounding the tragedy. Inside the car, they discovered a large amount of trash and various items, including books and sports equipment. Police discovered that after Nicole went missing, someone had used her ID and credit cards. Police are investigating the possibility that Nicole's car may have broken down on the way, and she was picked up by a stranger and harmed, and the location of her car was unusual because Nicole was supposed to be traveling to another city. The position of the car seat suggested that it had been driven by someone much larger and taller than her. In the lab, experts meticulously measured the seat position to gather clues about a potential suspect. They found DNA evidence inside the car, including hair and a single fingerprint. Police collected DNA and checked. Several patrol officers searched the area where the car was found. They asked anyone nearby if they had seen Nicole's car or who had parked it, but this did not yield any useful information. The police discovered that the car had been parked in the lot since February 10, as an illegal parking ticket from that date was stuck to the windshield. Unfortunately, there were no surveillance cameras available to assist in the investigation. Forensic tests showed that all traces of DNA in her car belonged to Nicole and David. The investigation yielded no new information to solve the case. By early April, there had been no progress. Nicole's parents had offered a $10,000 reward for any information that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrator. During this time, Nicole's mother, Gail, made frequent appearances on various television channels to raise awareness of the case. After a while, Nicole's family had to return to Arizona to work, but they kept in touch with the police who were handling the investigation. Nicole's father, Rod, was heartbroken and frustrated that the investigation was taking so long. Despite their efforts, the investigation continued without any breakthroughs. In September, the case was handed over to an experienced police officer. The new police quickly requested a search warrant for the house of the Nicole, which had not been done before. He aimed to find clues among her belongings, particularly on Nicole's computer. Unfortunately, the house revealed no signs of a crime, no blood or other evidence. The computer also yielded no useful information. Police continued to interview witnesses and acquaintances of Nicole. One of them was Barbara, a friend who had met Nicole at an Alcoholics Anonymous club. They had planned to meet at a coffee shop the evening Nicole went missing, but she never showed up. At first, Barbara thought Nicole was just running late. Then Barbara tried calling Nicole several times that day, but Nicole did not answer any of her calls. During this time, the police still had no clues to the case. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents, Rob and Gail, were at their home in Arizona. Their grief did not subside for a year. Feeling desperate, they decided to hire a private investigator because they were puzzled by the inconsistencies in the case. Nicole had left the house without her wedding ring, which was very unusual for someone who was so proud of her marriage and who would never willingly remove such a meaningful symbol. A private investigator began his investigation, but no leads were found. Nicole's family then increased the reward for information about the criminal to $25,000. Organizations focused on fighting crime and finding missing persons contributed an additional $1,000. The community remained tense, knowing that a dangerous criminal was still at large, the perpetrator seemingly without a motive, suggesting that he could be a madman ready to strike at any time. The police then requested a search warrant for Nicole's computer, believing it might contain clues about the criminal. In October 2009, the private investigator hired by Nicole's parents was charged with fraud. He falsely claimed to have found evidence in the case, but said he needed money to handle it. Her parents gave him more money, but then the private investigator disappeared and took on another case. As a result, his license was revoked. Nicole's parents no longer have a private investigator and no leads on the identity of the killer. In 2011, 5 years after Nicole's death, the investigation was still ongoing, but no significant updates were made. On March 21, 2012, the final suspect was arrested and revealed to be Nicole's husband, David. By this time, police had enough evidence against him. He was held in custody with bail set at $1 million. The prosecutor noted that the case had progressed significantly due to new technologies that were previously unavailable, especially in the field of forensic science. Police found that David's account of the night before Nicole's disappearance did not seem convincing. Additionally, police noted that only David and Nicole's DNA and fingerprints were found in her car. If strangers had been in the car, their fingerprints would still be there because they had not been erased. If the criminal had tried to erase the fingerprints, there would have been no fingerprints left. The driver's seat was adjusted to fit David's size, and surveillance footage from a gas station captured a person resembling him. After Nicole went missing, he used her cell phone to make multiple calls from various locations around the city. Police believed he was trying to throw the investigation off track. However, modern tracking technology allowed them to pinpoint the exact location of the calls, proving that Nicole could not have been there at the time because she was dead. Notably, both Nicole's and her husband's phones worked in the same areas. Strangulation, the method of murder, usually indicates a personal connection between the killer and the victim. Evidence found at the crime scene indicated that the killer was someone close to Nicole. This is consistent with the fact that she was not sexually assaulted. The medical examiner determined Nicole's time of death. It was found that she was killed at night or early in the morning while still in bed. Her limbs were clean, with no signs of struggle. Forensic experts determined the time of death by examining Nicole's stomach contents. They found that the food Nicole had eaten the night before was still undigested, suggesting that she had been murdered before she got up to go to work the next morning. Although they appeared to be a loving couple, it was clear that this was just a cover, and there were multiple reasons behind the crime. At the time, the family was facing serious financial difficulties. David is quite the party animal. He enjoys drinking and smoking marijuana, which puts a dent in the family budget. Nicole spent a lot of time and effort dealing with her addiction and had been trying to stay sober for years. David was jealous of his wife's strength. He also had affairs, and during the investigation, it was discovered that he had had at least 4 affairs. His lifestyle meant that he often pressured his wife into having sex. He even tried to drug her at a club to convince her, but she refused. This made him angry. He often met women at clubs, which led to sexual encounters. Just days after Nicole went missing, he began seeking new relationships. By the time he was arrested, David had remarried and had a child. This was especially painful for Nicole's parents, as their daughter had always wanted children. But David had no interest in that. Furthermore, David quickly began collecting documents to claim Nicole's life insurance. After gathering all the information, David was called in for questioning. At the police station, he denied any involvement in the murder. When asked to take a lie detector test, he agreed, but the results showed that he had lied. He was eventually arrested and charged with murder, but David firmly denied any involvement in the crime. The trial started in September 2013, 7 years after Nicole passed away. Her family and friends gathered in the courthouse, hoping for justice. The defense lawyer for the David argued that Nicole's death was linked to her relapsed alcohol addiction and possibly a new addiction to prescription drugs. He pointed to an empty pill bottle found during a search of the bathroom as evidence of this. And the defense insisted that all the evidence against David was circumstantial and that the case was based on speculation. Nicole's parents testified in court that David did not participate in the search efforts, did not help distribute flyers, and only pretended to be upset. Nicole's mother explained that the medication in question was a prescription painkiller prescribed to her daughter to treat severe abdominal pain caused by her endometriosis, which had significantly improved her condition. Prosecutors were unable to prove intentional conduct, So David Pitts was charged with second-degree murder. David was sentenced to 18 years and 4 months in prison, the maximum sentence under state law. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Gladys Ricart. In 1979, in Tamboril, Dominican Republic, 20 years old, Gladys Ricart was raising her young son alone after her high school relationship failed. Her sister Norma lived in the United States, and she dreamed of joining her. Determined to make her dream come true, she worked tirelessly, saved every penny, and made many sacrifices. Eventually, her hard work paid off, and she was able to move to the U.S., settling with her sister's family in Manhattan, New York. However, she could not afford to bring her son Davis with her initially, so he stayed with family back in the Dominican Republic. After arriving in the U.S., Gladys focused on learning English and found a job. She worked diligently to save enough money to reunite with her son. By 1983, she succeeded in bringing 4-year-old Davis to the U.S. Determined to build a brighter future, she enrolled in college. Believed that education is the key to opening up better opportunities for yourself. She graduated with a degree in economics and used her knowledge to pursue a career in accounting. Due to her hard work, she quickly became a top expert and one of the most important employees of the company. Gladys started from the very bottom and worked her way up to become the chief accountant at a large travel agency in the heart of Manhattan. Over time, she improved her English, pursued an education, built a successful career, and saved enough money to buy an apartment. In many ways, she had achieved the American dream. The only thing missing was a family and true love. Despite this, she was cautious when it came to relationships. While it seemed that she prioritized her career over marriage, this was deep down. She longed to meet her soulmate. By 1992, after living in the United States for 10 years, Gladys had a daily routine. She took the subway to work in the morning and returned in the evening to her sister's house. One day on the subway, she met Agustin Garcia. He is a well-known leader in Dominica and also a successful professional. At 40, he has built a successful career after immigrating from the Dominican Republic to the United States as a child. Like Gladys, he had risen from poverty to success. By the time they met, he owned several small businesses and lived in a large house with his 2 children from a previous marriage. Agustin was highly respected within the Dominican community and was known as a dependable and helpful individual. Having experienced the hardships of migration and immigration himself, he is passionate about helping anyone who wishes to pursue this challenging path. He eventually became the director of the Dominican Chamber of Commerce in New York, along with several other organizations connected to his homeland. Beyond his roles in these organizations, he was deeply involved in social initiatives. Through his efforts, several kindergartens and schools were established, establishing him as a respected and influential person in the community. Agustin seems to be the ideal mate for Gladys, a determined and compassionate young woman. What she found most appealing about him was his kind and gentle nature. He was polite, sociable, and carried himself like a true gentleman, which immediately caught her attention. Their meeting was purely coincidental, as Agustin rarely used the subway. However, on this particular day, his car broke down, and he ended up taking the train. He was instantly captivated by Gladys's beauty and decided to strike up a conversation. They spent the rest of the ride talking, exchanged phone numbers, and quickly arranged to meet again. From that moment, their romance began. Agustin frequently took Gladys to restaurants, treated her to exquisite meals, and showered her with expensive gifts. When her family learned about her new boyfriend, Agustin, they were happy for her. He seemed like an ideal partner and a good father to her son. After some time together, Augustine invited Gladys to move in with him, and she eagerly accepted this long-awaited proposal. According to what she shared with her family and friends, her greatest dream at the time was for Augustine to propose marriage so they could build a family together. She envisioned raising 3 children with him, and even hoped to have more children of their own. At that point, she was not yet 33 years old. Once Gladys moved in with Augustine, things quickly began to deteriorate. Her son, Davis, had great difficulty getting along with Augustine's children. The boy tried his best, especially because of the sincere advice of his mother, who always wanted him to learn how to build good relationships with people. However, Augustine's children treated Davis with arrogance, and the situation never improved. The situation is getting more complicated. Augustine consistently sided with his children, even when they were clearly in the wrong, which created strain in his relationship with Gladys. After 2 years of enduring such a life and constant arguments, she decided she didn't want to cause her son any more pain. She told Augustine that they should stop living together. Augustine agreed, but did not end their relationship. He helped her find a new house, just a few minutes' drive from his own. It was a spacious 2-story house, and he didn't hesitate to spend money on her, perhaps as a way to ease the tension between them. They continued to see each other when he visited she. By this time, her family and friends had grown so accustomed to he that they considered him practically part of the family. He introduced Gladys as his wife wherever they went. Although they were not legally married, but Gladys kept trying to convince Augustine to have a wedding. However, he firmly refused because of the negative experience in his previous marriage. He insisted he didn't want to marry or have children again. According to Gladys's relatives, over time, this situation took a toll on her. The happiness in her relationship gradually fades, and Augustine's unpleasant personality becomes more and more apparent. He frequently had affairs and increasingly exhibit over-controlling behavior. The situation becomes even more complicated for Gladys, as she has known about his actions, but kept silent for a long time to avoid causing conflict. Unfortunately, her silence only made things worse. During one argument, he chased she and attacked her. She managed to hide and lock herself in a room, but from that moment, she realized it was time to end the relationship. However, she remained fearful of his manipulation for a while. Gladys wanted a solid reason to break up, one that would leave Augustine with no way to argue. The simplest way was to catch him in one of his affairs. By the fall of 1998, the situation became more tense when she went to Augustine's office and caught him with another woman. This gave her the perfect opportunity to end things. She immediately told him that things were over between them, left his house, and informed all his acquaintances that he was no longer a part of her life. Even though they had broken up, Augustine was not ready to accept such changes. He considered Gladys as his property after 7 years together. Following their argument, he repeatedly called her, left gifts on her doorstep, including bouquets of flowers and even a Bible. Gladys thinks these gestures are just meant to make her come back, but her family believed they held deeper symbolic meaning. Regardless, she was determined not to rekindle their relationship under any circumstances. Several months later, Gladys met a man named James Preston Jr. at a restaurant during her lunch break. James, who also worked in accounting and moonlighted as a musician, immediately clicked with she. They quickly fell in love, and after a few meetings, they decided to make their relationship public. Over the next 2 months, they spent all their free time together, and eventually, they set a wedding date for September 26, 1999. Gladys and her family were overjoyed as her lifelong dream of a wedding and wearing a wedding dress finally came true. She immersed herself completely in planning the wedding, focusing on every step of the preparation with complete joy. She was so preoccupied that she didn't realize Augustine had been coming to her house nearly every night, watching her for hours. His obsessive behavior made it clear he couldn't let go of his possessiveness. On August 12, about 6 weeks before the wedding, Gladys and her fiancé, James, were enjoying a quiet evening together when Augustine suddenly showed up at the door. Initially, he calmly asked to speak with her, but she refused. His demeanor quickly changed. He began yelling and throwing stones at the windows. Worried he might get more aggressive, she called the police. Augustine was taken into custody, but she chose not to press charges, wanting to avoid causing him trouble and to stay focused on her wedding preparations. This decision turned out to be a significant mistake. In September, just 2 days before the wedding, Gladys went to a store to purchase some items needed for the bridesmaids. Unbeknownst to her, Augustine had been following her. He approached her, hugged her as if they were still in a relationship, and behaved as though everything was fine between them. Gladys didn't resist, fearing that rejecting him might provoke his anger. They exchanged a few words before saying goodbye. That evening, she confided in James and family, sharing her discomfort and concerns about Augustine's intrusive behavior. However, she had no idea just how dangerous he truly was. On September 26, 1999, the day she had long awaited, her wedding day, finally arrived. She was at home surrounded by her family and friends, preparing for her wedding ceremony. She wore a wedding dress, had her hair, makeup done, radiant and happy to be a bride. Photos and videos captured these joyful moments, which tragically turned out to be the final ones of her life. Meanwhile, the groom, James, was already waiting for her at the church. However, the joy of the wedding was spoiled when Augustine, who was watching her, suddenly appeared. He used violence to murder her, causing her instant death. When paramedics arrived, there was nothing they could do to save her. Her dream of a wedding was painfully unfinished. Augustine was immediately arrested and taken into custody without attempting to flee or resist. During his interrogation, he admitted to frequently driving past Gladys's house, claiming it was due to his sentimentality. On the morning of September 26, he was surprised to see a crowd of people dressed formally, along with several limousines parked outside her home. He claimed he had no idea she was getting married that day. After driving past the house multiple times, he eventually stopped in front of it. Still unsure whose wedding it was, he decided to go inside to find out. As Augustine got out of his car across the street, Gladys's brother, Juan, approached him cautiously, aware of his bad temper. Juan tried to convince him to leave to avoid disrupting the wedding. It was then that he realized she was marrying someone else, but he didn't show any reaction. Augustine claimed he had been invited to the wedding, so Juan did not stop him, and he calmly entered the house. No one objected to his presence. Initially, when questioned about the attack on Gladys, Augustine claimed that he had no memory of it. However, after a while, he confessed to the detectives. The next day, he was brought to court for a preliminary hearing where he faced the charges against him. During this hearing, he had the opportunity to plead guilty and avoid a lengthy trial. The bail was set at $5 million, showing that he is a major threat to the community. The attack quickly became a major focus of attention because of the extensive media coverage. Journalists raced to create sensational headlines, spread rumors, and even offer unsubstantiated theories. Images of the killer, Augustine, began to appear regularly on national news. The case's prominence attracted numerous lawyers, especially top lawyers, who want to use the trial to enhance their reputation and advance their careers. Augustine's trial was scheduled for October 2, 2001, allowing the defense nearly 2 years to prepare and build a more positive image for the defendant. The hired lawyers quickly engaged with the media, organizing press conferences and making public statements. Their objective was to influence public opinion about the crime by portraying Augustine as a victim. Their first move was to accuse Gladys's brother, Juan, and her son Davis of assaulting Augustine. They argued that there was no intention to kill Gladys, and her death happened accidentally when he defended himself from an attack by Juan and Davis. At the same time, the defense sought to discredit Gladys by accusing her of multiple betrayals. They claimed she had been planning to reconcile with Agustin, but was secretly preparing to marry James. According to the defense, this betrayal pushed Agustin into a mental breakdown, leading him to attack her. They stated that he had been devastated to discover that Gladys, who had been holding hands with him at the supermarket just the day before, was preparing to marry James. They believe this is a crime due to emotional outbursts, which qualifies as manslaughter under state law. If accepted, this argument would significantly reduce Agustin's punishment to a sentence of 5 to 10 years in prison instead of life imprisonment. The defense emphasized that Agustin was a compassionate person who cared about the Latino community in New York. This has had a strong impact on public opinion. When false rumors began circulating that Gladys had been unfaithful to Agustin, her image in the public eye became negative. Some even believed that she deserved her fate. This was a devastating blow to her family. Realizing the immense damage caused by Agustin's legal team, her relatives started attending every press conference to protect her reputation. Gladys's family, siblings, and extended relatives denied the infidelity rumors, calling them malicious lies. They emphasized that the relationship between she and Agustin had ended long ago and could not be rekindled. It was Agustin who was always following her and acted inappropriately. They emphasized that out of compassion, Gladys did not file a lawsuit against him before the murder. The judge was informed about the murder. Press conferences and interviews with journalists were officially prohibited, but they had already caused harm to Gladys's reputation, create difficulties for the prosecution. During the trial, the defense team continued to depict Agustin as a victim, while tarnishing Gladys's image. However, the prosecution has one big advantage. The attack and Gladys's death had been caught on camera. The opening part of the wedding ceremony and preparations were recorded, but Agustin hadn't noticed it. Before the trial began, only the judge was allowed to view the footage. The defense argued that showing the video to the jury was unfair and worked hard to block its usage as evidence. After lengthy deliberations, the court ruled that the video could be used, but only the part where Gladys was attacked. This was a 15-second clip, and the prosecution worried it wouldn't be enough to persuade the jury, particularly since the defense could argue the clip was taken out of context. This limitation gave the defense some opportunity to build their case. The defense argued that Agustin was forced to take up arms after being attacked by Gladys' brother and son, and claimed that Agustin's attack on Gladys was unintentional. Despite the objections of Gladys's family, the defense insisted that everything stemmed from her dissolute behavior. They presented several witnesses, including a neighboring family. The father and daughter testified that they had recently seen Gladys at Agustin's house and believed the two were still living together as a couple. In reality, Gladys had visited only to collect her remaining belongings. Through such testimony, the defense succeeded in making the jury sympathize with Agustin. However, the prosecution was prepared to counter these claims. The prosecution relied heavily on video evidence showing the crime. The video captured Agustin murdering Gladys in front of her family, including her son, shows that he did not act in self-defense. The footage shows that after he entered her home, no one attacked or threatened him, contrary to his testimony. However, he still attacked Gladys as soon as he entered. The prosecution argued this was a premeditated act born out of jealousy. The prosecutor's office attempted to counter misleading statements from defense attorneys who sought to portray Gladys as an immoral person. There was evidence proving that after the breakup, Agustin had stalked she for an extended period. All of her relatives confirmed this. Even her son was afraid of he, knowing how cruel he truly was. Agustin's kindness and selflessness were merely a facade, hiding his true sinister nature. For at least several months, he had been surveilling her and making unannounced visits. In his car, authorities discovered a list of license plate numbers belonging to cars parked near her house. He wasn't just spying on her. He was meticulously tracking everyone in her vicinity, likely to distinguish the neighbor's vehicles from the car of her future husband, James. During the trial, Agustin made an unexpected and controversial decision. He chose to testify on his own behalf before the jury. This decision significantly influenced the outcome of the case. In legal practice, such a move can either be a strategic advantage or a disastrous mistake for the accused. The prosecution asked him to recount the incident that took place in the house. One would think he would tailor his testimony to fit the defense's arguments that he acted in a state of temporary insanity and was not in control of himself. He alleged that Juan and Davis attacked him, but this claim had already been disproven by video evidence. He also said that at that time, he lost of awareness and could not remember how he attacked her. However, he did not provide any evidence to support his claim of temporary amnesia. Although Agustin tried to show remorse and even shed tears, his actions were not convincing enough. For the prosecution, his testimony only strengthened their case, as it contradicted the defense's argument and offered no plausible reason for his actions. On February 1, 2002, Gladys's family awaited the final verdict. After a lengthy hearing, the jury deliberated and found Agustin guilty of premeditated murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 30 years. Gladys was buried in her hometown of Tamboril in the Dominican Republic. Her body was brought home a week after her death and she was buried in her wedding dress. After his conviction, Agustin refused to speak publicly or give any opinion. A reporter later discovered that he turned to religion early in his imprisonment and began preaching to other inmates. Meanwhile, his lawyers fought for a reduced sentence, but several appeals were denied. Agustin remains in prison and will be eligible for parole in 2029.